I'd like to call this meeting of the Colerain Township Board of Trustees to order. It is 7:02 p.m. on Tuesday, March 10th, 2020. Mrs. Harlow, if you would please call the roll.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Here.
Mr. Unger?
Here.
Mr. Waller?
Here.
I'd ask that you all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I'd ask that you remain standing for a moment of meditation. And the meditation is, everybody needs to remember that we still live in the greatest country on earth, and all those things in our Pledge of Allegiance, they're very true. And everything you hear in the media and all the pluses and minuses and all the political heads screaming at each other, we still live in the greatest place on earth. And for that, we thank God. Amen. Please be seated. Our first item is Fiscal Office.
All right, we have 3 sets of minutes for your approval this evening. The first is the special meeting of February 11th, 2020. This was the meeting that was held at 5:30 that evening.
I would motion that we approve the minutes from the 5:30 meeting on
February 11th?
February 11th, I'm sorry.
I second it.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Heather, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
And then we have the minutes of the regular meeting of February 11th, 2020. So this was the meeting that was called to order at, well, the regular meeting. It was called to order a little bit after 6, and then what the board went into executive session, et cetera. So that meeting. Mr. Unger, you had asked me if it was correct that under the police chief's report, under Chief Denny for the month of January, if both the arrests and traffic stops were correct at both of them being exactly 200. And yes, Chief double-checked that today, and indeed, both of those numbers are correct.
Okay, thank you. I would motion that we approve the minutes from the February 11th, 2020 regular meeting.
I second it.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? Heather, you did get a number of edits that we communicated on, and
Yes.
you were able to make all
Those
those?
have been integrated.
Mostly spelling and typos
Right.
and that type of thing?
Yes.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, Heather, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
And then finally, our special meeting of March the 6th, just this past Friday.
I would motion that we approve the March 6th, 2020 minutes.
I second it.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Heather, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
And Mr. Waller?
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Our next item, Jeff, I'll let you go ahead with the proclamation.
Thank you, Mr. Unger. Evening Board of Trustees. I'd like to invite Mr. Mike Iona up to present the proclamation, or to read the proclamation for our retiring senior planner, Marty Kohler.
Before I read the proclamation, I guess I'd like to say a couple words about Marty Kohler. Good evening, Board. It is an honor to be able to present a proclamation to you tonight honoring Martin Kohler for over 35 years of experience serving the greater Cincinnati region as a community planner. During that time, Marty has played an impactful role serving as the planning director for the cities of Middletown, Ohio, and Lebanon, Ohio, before finishing his career here at Colerain Township. Marty is a tremendous planner, and in the 6 months that I have been here, he has been a wealth of knowledge, expertise, and wisdom in the field of planning. You can tell the merits of an individual in the way that other people look up to them, and I can tell you that all of staff looks up to Marty, and not just for his skills and background, but also for the candor and integrity that he brings to the position. I would be remiss if I did not mention that Marty's personality. The planning and zoning game is not an easy game. When you make one person or group happy, you inevitably make other people or groups not so happy. You also meet all sorts of character, as was evidenced today in one of our pre-application meetings. Through all of this, Marty is somebody that you can count on being your team to come through with a smile and a laugh, even when it's tough, but especially when it's needed. The last thing I want to mention about Marty is his dedication to community. Most people clock out of their regular job without an inkling of giving back, of giving any more of themselves to the betterment of others. Off of work hours, you will find Marty working in his community to make it a better place, whether it be working with other community members to restore a historic home, structure, or theater, to actually volunteering his time to work at community events and festivals. Marty is there. As a person who grew up in Middletown, where Marty currently resides, I am honestly so happy that you live there, Marty, because it is in great hands with you in that community. If the whole world had a lot more Marty Kohlers, it would be a lot better place. In short, it's an honor to be able to work with you, Marty, and I'm proud to present a motion to all of you, the board, to adopt this proclamation to honor Martin Kohler for an exceptional career, not only here in Colerain Township, but across the Cincinnati region. And I'll go ahead and read that proclamation for you. Be it proclaimed by the Township Trustees of Colerain Township that whereas Martin Kohler has provided dedicated and outstanding service to the greater Cincinnati region for more than 35 years, and whereas Martin Kohler has served as the senior planner with Colerain Township for over 4 years, and whereas Martin Kohler has provided continuous planning and zoning services to Colerain Township, Park Forest, Illinois, as well as the cities of Middletown, Ohio, and Lebanon, Ohio, where he served as the Director of Planning and Zoning. And whereas Martin Kohler has assisted Colerain Township with major planning and zoning efforts in the furtherance of creating positive community outcomes through community planning and development. And whereas Martin Kohler will retire on March 30th, 2020, we wish Mr. Kohler all the best and thank him for his tireless dedication to the betterment of the community and the region as a whole. Be it proclaimed that the Colerain Township Board of Trustees does hereby recognize community planner Martin Kohler for his years of outstanding dedication and service to the residents of Colerain Township. Adopted on the 10th day of March 2020.
I would motion that we adopt such a thing.
I will second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
And we'll start the discussion with you, Marty. Do you have any comments as to whether or not we should approve this?
Don't feel obligated. Mike's comments were just very kind. I sincerely appreciate it. It has been a privilege working for Colerain Township. This is a wonderful community. We build cities, but as Mike said, as community planner, I think is much better term. And Colerain has that sense of community. You pull together in times of tragedy, you celebrate your joys, and you do the right things. And I would just urge you to continue to do so. I am shocked this evening. The audience is a little bigger than usual.
We're here for you, Marty.
Somebody leaked the word. People from my neighborhood, raise your hands. But that's the type of thing. Neighbors get together and support each other, and I sincerely appreciate that. So, thank you very much.
That's fabulous, Marty. Is there any other discussion?
Marty, I known you for 2 years. You're an amazing guy. You're always smiling. Any question I ask, you always respond very humbly. And you do an outstanding job for this community. Just you mentioned you brought together this community during the tragedy, during the happy time. And you really got a heart. Even, I think a week ago, so I saw you in the hallway. I asked Marty, do you really want to do this? Why don't you stay here some more?
You could be trustee like somebody else that retired and did that.
Yeah. So I really admire you, your sacrifice, your dedicated work you've done for this community. Thank you.
Mr. Kohler, we didn't know each other very well, but I think it's a testament to your character, the folks that drove down from your neighborhood to see you, and I think that's, that's all that needs to be said. Driving from Middletown, is that right? I think that can be anywhere from 30 minutes to 4.5 hours on I-75. And that shows a commitment that I think is unparalleled. Thank you for your service to the community, and good luck to you, sir, in the future. Thank you so much.
And I would like to add that I did get to work with you a little bit, and I enjoyed some great victories with you, including resolving a 35-year conflict at the beginning of with a couple neighbors, and that seems to have quieted down quite a bit, and all the other great things you've done with your steady hand and your cool demeanor and your thoughtful approach to various issues. Is there any other discussion, or shall we call for a vote?
Call for vote.
Heather, please call for a vote.
It is my honor to call the roll, Marty. Mr. Rajagopal,
Yes.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
and Mr. Waller.
Yes.
Motion carries. And if all you wonderful visitors from Middletown could stick around for at least the whole meeting, but if not that, for just the next couple presentations, and there's a couple really important ones here, so if you'd
Mr. Chairman,
You'd all
I
stick
know that
around.
they have a celebration, I think, planned back at Marty's house in Middletown. So.
Really, what is that, for our viewing public, what is that address, Mike? For our viewing public, what is Marty's home address?
I did want to get this proclamation signed. It hasn't been
Okay,
signed.
sure, bring it up here, we've approved it, and we will sign it, so.
Thank you.
But there's two very important presentations, if you folks could just hang around just a little bit. And we'll go ahead and do the Megaland update and the Clear Caption thing, because Clear Caption applies to everybody in this room.
Okay.
So,
Very good. Next, we have an update on our Megaland project, and that will be given by Public Service Director Jackie O'Connell. Let me pull this up.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Better?
yes.
I'll wait till I get the slides up.
We have, for our visitors and our regulars, we have an exciting project going on. It's the construction of a new, very up-to-date playground called Megaland.
Okay, I'll start talking, and when the pictures come up, a lot of them will speak for themselves. I'm sure a lot of people have seen it because we've been working on this as a township for, probably about a year now, I'd say. So I have the exciting position tonight to present the newest concept from the design team on the playground that's going to replace Megaland in Colerain Park. So it's a new concept. We took all the feedback that we heard, or a lot of the feedback that we heard from the old designs that we had, or the previous designs that we had, and from the advisory committee. And there was a lot of elements that were in the first design, but that didn't really resonate with people. So we pulled them out, and the design company pulled them out in a different way that we heard from the public. So it's got a historical feel, if you just want to go to the map. The new concept has a historical feel to it. So as soon as you walk in the playground, you will, keep going, you will walk into the fort. So you will walk in at number 1, and you will be presented with this giant fort-like structure in front of you. So I know those of you who love history and who loved Megaland, this really means a lot. I didn't grow up in the community. I grew up 2 hours north of here, but I grew up near a town called Fort Recovery, Ohio, and they still actually have a fort. So when we saw this design, it reminded me of turning the corner in Fort Recovery and seeing the fort. So it was very exciting. So it's got a historical nod to it. The bottom piece is made to resemble the outline of Fort Colerain and Fort Dunlap. And then it meanders up to Fort Washington. It's in the shape of Fort Washington. So it's got this historical elements in it, but we don't lose Megaland in it. It's got a nod to Megaland without completely recreating Megaland with the fort feel. It's the great part about this piece for me is it lends itself to imagination. So you can be a superhero, you can be a princess, you can be an explorer, you can be an adventurer. It's got adventure and challenge themes, as you can see through the concept of a log bridge, a climbing wall, a zip line. It's got elements for the quieter. It's got benches. It's got slides. It's got a quiet place. It's got a toddler playground. It's got a meandering path. The quiet place for me is very important. I've done a lot of work with sensory-friendly areas, so having a place that you can just go and you can read a book, or you can take your child when they're just too overstimulated, I think is a really nice nod in here. It's accessible. It's got a ramp up to the bridge. The playground itself is accessible via ramps and surfacing. The Parks and Rec staff also got to take a look at this. So we reviewed it, and there's 5 members on our Parks and Recreation team. They maintain our playgrounds. They have seen a lot of playgrounds. This is their business. And the first thing they said when they saw it, most of them were like, this is a really cool concept. Like, I love the feel of this. I like the look of this. We talked through some operational considerations. We know there's some operational things that we would like to tweak, but keep in mind, this is the concept phase. This is the do we like the idea? Can we work with what we have? And we all thought we can work with what we have. We liked the overall feel of it. We liked the different types of elements in it, the play elements, the visual elements, the lay of the land elements, so like where you are in place, and just even the approach when you walk up to the fort, and that's what you see is the fort. You are immediately in that experience. So we're very excited to move on with this project, and that's what I'm asking is for feedback from the trustees tonight, and the Parks and Recreation staff would like permission to move on to the next phase, which would be the actual design phase. So moving out of the concept phase and working on the more operational aspects and tangible aspects of this design.
I think through the course of a lot of discussion, we've arrived at the Fort Colerain Dunlap Station concept. I would say to move forward and leave that up to my other fellow trustees to comment.
Yeah, I think that, I'm on. I can't get the packet to download, but I'm on. I think that moving forward, yeah, that I think there are different elements of this that we can personalize for, specifically for the township based upon it, and I think it's, yeah, I think I like it, and I think it's time to kind of mold it to be unique to us.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I had forgotten to mention. There are so many elements in here that we can work with the community, build on, or work with the community to personalize and to make their own and to have a part of, to feel like they have contributed in a way other than monetarily, that they contributed to the ideas, that they contributed to the actual build of the playground. So.
And I think places like the Historical Society are good places to start so that we, I'm a little biased to make it an educational opportunity and a learning opportunity, especially with regard to history. Yeah, that's what we're supposed to do, and I think that's I think it's a great idea.
Any comments, Rod?
The concept is good, very good concept.
I think that
All right. That sounds to me like,
we kind of bring us your next update on it.
so the next step then will be to to dive down even farther. So this is the concept, and the next step is to create the construction documents that can go out to bid then. So we will work to get those, to get that accomplished and bring it back to you. And then eventually, once the construction documents are done, then we'll ask your authorization to release an RFP for construction. And this is going to have to happen on a certain timeline because we have funding sources that expire. So,
Well, and the construction season is upon us, and
Yes.
to get this done this year, we'll need to keep things moving if we're going to get it done during this year's construction season.
Yes.
So what's the time frame between now, the concept, from today till the next stage?
unclear. We need to get with we just needed to make sure that you guys were all on board with this concept because we didn't want to start getting
I'm
construction
on board
documents.
with the Fort Colerain concept.
So we'll come back with a timeline next.
All right, we'll
next
get back,
Yep.
okay?
Are you good with that, Raj? The
Yeah,
Fort
good, good,
Colerain
yeah.
concept?
Well,
Okay.
the concept is good, we'll still think about it a little bit and
Great.
call the job.
Okay.
And there'll be opportunity then for feedback from other interested parties.
Right, right.
Well,
Like,
on what?
as far as more personalizing it towards the township,
Well, it is I don't think there is a play structure in America that is Fort Dunlap. So it's very personalized. You know what I mean? I mean, it is Colerain Township specific. The concept is really cool. You can wander through the wilderness from Fort Washington, which was in Cincinnati, to Fort Dunlap, which was in Colerain Township. And the footprints of the play spaces are meant to reflect those specific footprints of those forts. But are you,
So I guess now that we have kind of a concept, I think that, to me, it would be, I think it's important to open to suggestions on how to implement that in a more, I mean, not, hey, this is what I want the blueprints to look like, but hey, is it possible to do this? Is it?
I think we could probably work with the designers on working with the Historical Society and finding those elements. And then I think when we do our public opening as well, you know, when we're ready to open, we can work on elements of that in that event too.
Because we have, I think, we have a rich history of people that have lived here for a long time. That there's the history that's in the books, and then there's the history that's kind of an oral tradition that I think is oftentimes richer and needs to be fleshed out.
so how do you see that public engagement looking? So how would you like us,
Contact Jackie at this point.
if anybody has any input, contact Jackie?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay,
she's got time.
great. Sounds
I mean,
good.
that's the best way because we don't
This
have
meeting's
another.
over at midnight. I'll be free.
You'll be
So.
fine, okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Staff is very excited about this, not just to get a leg going and start moving forward, but we like the concept and we are excited with the space this creates for kids, and we think it will be a premier playground for the region. We're really excited about it. So
Thank you,
very much.
Jackie. And I appreciate everybody sticking around. The next two presentations are very important. So, Jeff.
Sure. The next presentation is by an organization called Clear Caption. With that, I'd like to invite, yes, perfect.
Angela Mumphrey. And I will give you a little background. I'm the one who contacted Angela. The technology and things that have come along in the last 45 to 50 years for those in our community that are deaf or hard of hearing. I've got a younger brother who's in that situation. He had 100% hearing loss when he was a year old. And back then there was no technology whatsoever except a flashing light if somebody hit the doorbell. And then along came these expensive little machines called TTYs. And I took everything I had and bought one, but just for our own family members, so Steve could communicate within the family. And then we had a 5, 9, 12, 19 television, which is the old VHF channels before cable was ever around here, and we had a box on top, a captioning machine that was maybe 2 foot by 1.5 foot by 4 inches tall, and it used every bit of 120 volts to get it to run, and there was 3 or 4 shows that had captioning content added to the stream. And then along came these things called computers and emails, and then the cell phone came along with texting. So the world has just opened up for those that are deaf or hard of hearing. And when I ran into you and found out that these services on a much higher level are available, and it's federally funded, and it doesn't cost our township anything, but you can educate our audience and those at home about what I'm talking about. So please go ahead.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Board, for allowing me to speak. Again, my name is Angela Mumphrey. I am the Business Development Manager for Clear Captions Telephones. Clear Captions Telephones is a federally funded program. Now, our company is located in Roseville, California, and our CEO is Bob Ray. Bob Ray came up with this program because his mom had some sort of hearing loss. So it originally started with a company called Clear, and then he developed Clear Captions. We have been in existence for approximately 8 years now. So what Bob has come up with is a captioning phone where you can talk like you normally talk and hear the best that you can, but when you miss something, you can look down at our phone and see what the person is saying to you. Now, this particular device, you can get it at one of our hearing aid stores, but we offer it to you at no cost. And the reason that we can offer it to you at no cost is through the Americans with Disabilities. Now, I know you've heard about the Americans with Disability. It was established by George Bush in 1990. There are 5 titles to the Americans with Disabilities, and Clear Captions is Title 4, which establishes the telecommunication relay services. Now, the telecommunications relay service, provides the funding for the caption phones. So each of the telecommunication companies pays a fraction of their fees into that fund, and that's how we get paid, Clear Captions. Now, there are other caption companies. There's CapCall, there's CapTel, but our company is Clear Captions. Now, I tell everyone, you also pay for it. You may not have the phone, but you pay for it every day. If you go home, look at your cell phone bill, look at your regular phone bill. On your phone bill, there is an item called the Universal Service Fee. This fee is somewhere between 80 cents and $1.50. That also goes up to the FCC, and that also pays us to provide you with the phone. Now, as I stated, it is federally funded, so there are federal guidelines. One of the guidelines is to have documented hearing loss. Now, when I say documented hearing loss, it could be tendinitis, which is ringing in the ears. You can have 2% hearing loss. You don't have to have a hearing aid. You could have 50% hearing loss. You could be having hearing loss from birth. You can have hearing loss from being an elderly person. Our phone is not just for seniors, it's for anyone who has some sort of hearing loss. And I wanted to bring it to the board to introduce it to your residents of Colerain Township. As I said, there are 3 guidelines. The first one is documented hearing loss with your doctor or audiologist. You have to have a phone line, which is a home phone line, and the internet. If you have all 3 of those requirements, you get our phone at no cost. Service is free, setup is free, installation is free. It is a federally funded program. Thank you.
And for anyone that knows anyone that has any hearing loss, either 100% deaf or whatever degree of hearing loss, these programs are available. Look at your cell phone bill or your Cincinnati Bell bill. You are already paying for this.
That is correct.
So I just thank you for bringing that. I'm going to ask Jeff to put something out on Circle and a way to contact Angela or the other companies, just so people know that it's out there. And thank you so much for taking the time to come here and bring. I'm sure everyone here knows somebody that's suffering from some level of hearing loss.
I agree.
This is 2020 and the technology's there, and let's be more inclusive so everyone with whatever range of hearing they have can be fully engaged in life.
I agree that we're here to help you stay connected and independent.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
And Jeff, I'm gonna make a motion to amend the agenda at this point because there's 2 other items that I want to add. So this is just a motion to amend the agenda so we can add these 2 items.
Okay.
So I motion that we amend the agenda to add 2 items. Second it.
Second, yeah.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Heather, would you call for a vote?
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
And Mr. Waller?
All right.
The first item is a proclamation. Heather Harlow has been our fiscal officer for my time here and for much longer than that. And this proclamation, and Heather did not run for re-election, so it so becomes that this is her last meeting unless we have, I guess we could schedule 19 more meetings with the 2 days' notice, but this is apparently her last meeting, or so she thinks. So I'm going to ask my fellow board members to approve this, but I will go ahead and read it. This is a proclamation recognizing March 31st, 2020 as Heather Harlow Day in Colerain Township. Hamilton County, Ohio, be it proclaimed by the Township Trustees of Colerain Township that whereas Heather Harlow was elected Township Clerk in November of 2003 and took office on April 1st, 2004. In 2005, the Ohio Legislature changed the position name to Fiscal Officer, and whereas Heather Harlow, as the Fiscal Officer and Record Officer, is one of the 4 elected officials for the Township. Heather is responsible for keeping the record of proceedings at public meetings, accounting functions, and reporting to the county and state auditors, and whereas Heather Harlow manages and processes all public records requests, painstakingly ensuring information is provided in a timely fashion, and whereas Heather Harlow has attended every meeting of the trustees, including special meetings and executive session only meetings, missing only the day of the birth of her son and on one occasion when she became ill, and with the exception of those 2, for 16 years you have been here every meeting. Whereas Heather Harlow has been a resident of Colerain Township since 1980, taking every opportunity to promote and support the township and its mission while being visible and active in the community. And whereas Heather Harlow will leave her position as fiscal officer on March 31st, 2020, after 16 years of service. We wish Heather and her family all the best and thank her for her tireless dedication to the community. Be it proclaimed that the Colerain Township Board of Trustees does hereby recognize March 31st, 2020 as Heather Harlow Day in Colerain Township. Do I have a motion?
I will motion that we recognize March 31st, 2020 as Heather Harlow Day in Colerain Township.
I second it.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Sure. I know. I known Heather for a long time. I remember when you brought John, your first child, to our daycare. He's my first child to our daycare. I known you. I didn't realize that 16 years went that fast.
Sure does.
And I known you for that long period of time. You always loved the Colerain Township, and you really not only love, you also get your children get involved with the township. Your husband got involved in the township in our district, and you did amazing work. And we're really going to miss it.
We've known each other now for a few years, and certainly you and your family have been so welcoming and helpful to me. And the one thing that always strikes me is at the end of each trustee meeting, you always end it on a very positive note and a laugh and a smile. And I think that's just something unique that I don't even know that you realize you're doing it. I think it's just who you are. And not that Jeff Baker isn't a humorous, warm fellow of his own right.
He's warm and fuzzy.
Yeah, we certainly will miss that, and thank you so much for your dedication and your hard work to the township. But I think there's no higher service than service to your community, service to others, and you certainly have done that, and I applaud that. Thank you.
And I would agree. Heather and Michael and John and James, the two boys have never known their mother to not be an elected official, so they'll be in for something different and something new. And I appreciate all the sacrifices you guys have made, as Heather has spent an awful lot of time up here. And with that, is there any other discussion? Hearing none, Heather, please call for a vote to approve the resolution.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Thank you, Heather. And the other item that I wanted to add to the agenda is a motion to add an agenda item to have, is Brandon Kyle here? Yes, sir. To have the monthly Brandon Kyle crime report. So I'd like to motion to amend the agenda to have that report. So I will motion to amend the agenda for that. Okay.
Do we want to amend the agenda with two items, or?
Let's go ahead and do Brandon Kyle first, since I already started that, and then we'll do the other one.
I will second that motion.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion about adding Brandon Kyle to the agenda?
The agenda to add two items.
Right.
Okay.
One was your proclamation, and one was for Brandon Kyle.
Right, so you don't need to do it
Yeah,
again.
we voted already, so we don't need to.
We don't need to do them separately? Okay. Well, Mr. Kyle?
We don't have a certificate for you, but
I'm working on mine. All right, good evening. So I'm going to do things just slightly different for this presentation, and that's simply I'd like to cover the township as a whole, simply mention as far as the beats behind it. At this current moment, they mirror the township and what we're currently seeing in those numbers. And then I'd like to spend the majority of the time on a new component that we've actually added to this report. So that's the bulk majority of what I plan to cover tonight. And then if we have any questions after that, please let's dive in. So just taking a look as far as the township here, I say always again, one, we're early in the year, and two, when you're up a really good previous year, that could skew how the new year is currently looking. So when I currently look at right now is 2020 versus the 3-year average. And when we look at 2020 versus the 3-year average, our categories look very good. They are essentially still down in a lot of these categories across the board here. We're seeing some increases when it comes to 2020 versus 19 year-to-date figures for property crime. This was something that we, with the holiday push, again, we saw that increase there. Chief Denny did mention to me that a lot of this we were talking about as far as was driven by this retail crime, the theft crime within the retail businesses, which they did meet with a lot of these retail establishments to kind of talk, one, establish the relationship to communicate back and forth, but two, talk about some of the best practices for crime prevention and to prevent these in the future. So that's a bit of piece going into that, and already within the 28-day across our property crime, we start to see some of these decreases. So hopefully we see this for the categories coming up for the 90-day as well as year-to-date. So again, that's what our our township numbers actually look like. Where I think we're in very good shape when it comes to the township for crime figures. This is the 28-day map looking at these locations across the, essentially almost a complete February, but a 28-day. And we can move forward here. Very small numbers when we're talking about Colerain Township violent crime, so I won't go too deep into that. And then when it comes to our property crime, I mean, just kind of what I was talking about before, when we look at 19 versus the 3-year average, we are below the 3-year average in every category except for auto theft at this current time. So very good shape when it comes and looking at
Brandon, on that last column,
Yes, sir.
it's the black column is 24, the blue is 222, and the gold colored one is 11. And
That's
just
right.
for people at home that are watching this and might not see it, what do those three numbers represent?
Yes, so with that, these are different crime categories. So it does look black on the screen there, and so it's actually a very dark blue, but either way, that is a burglary / B&E crime category.
That's the 24?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And then the lighter blue, the 222 is theft. And then the orange color there on the right with the 11 is auto theft.
11 people had their automobiles
Currently
taken without permission or just flat out stolen.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you for interpreting that.
Not a problem. So again, with each of the beats, they essentially mirror what we're seeing in the township. So now that we've become a little bit more familiar with this report and we can kind of understand how the flow of that goes, I'm going to spend the majority of our time on this new addition here, just so we can talk about this new data set that we are capturing within this report. So we talked about bringing in a lot of our customer service requests and trying to figure out essentially where these requests are concentrating throughout the township. The idea, obviously, kind of looking into where we focused when it comes to these customer service requests versus does it have any correlation with crime throughout the township. And I think that we'll actually find that there is a correlation between the two, and some of these things tend to be symptoms of the problem, or they could simply be, they could also go another direction, and it could be a strong community that is pulling together to essentially report the things that they'd like to see fixed throughout the community. So two opposite ends of the spectrum, right? But these are essentially what we're trying to identify right now. So moving on here, just to give you a little background as into the analysis and the process behind it. So this is broken down. There is a field type called service type. There is scores that each of these can receive that are from 0.25, 0.5, 0.75 to 1. Score is assigned based on perception of severity and difficulty of resolution. And this was interpreted by myself, so this is something that I will say, I was looking at each of the categories, trying to determine as far as what we can consider to be most severe to least severe and difficulty of resolution. Examples of that could include vacant building as kind of the high end of the spectrum down to a trash problem. So that kind of gives you an idea as to the type of problems that we could deal with when we're looking at this. As far as the service status, so this is, again, same score range, 0.25 to 1, assigned based on perception of severity and difficulty of resolution. Again, examples include new, in progress, orders, and closed. So the idea behind it is obviously if a new order comes in, that's more to the front of our brain than something that, say, happened around 89 days ago, correct? So we're looking and we're giving more of a higher score to those that are newer and incoming, and over time the score tails off as we further progress down the line, as well as again as it moves through the stages of the service request moves in. So if it's a new request and moves on, and we see progress to go to either in progress or orders, or obviously as we see things progress along, then we know that we're working through these resolutions. And with our service priority, we have standard or hazardous. Hazardous as a multiplier that multiplies this by 150% if it is deemed as hazardous. And then we already talked about the time parameters here. So again, a newer request worth more in the when they first come in, and as time progresses, they decrease in score moving backward. I know that's a lot, and I'm trying to keep it short here so I'm not losing everyone, but that just gives you an idea and insight into the process for how we're trying to measure this. At the end of the day, the idea is to take all of these categories, when you're looking at either multiple data sets or multiple fields within a data set, trying to take all this and capture it into one number. Okay, and so that's what's actually happening here. We're capturing and looking at this as one number. So this then gives you an idea. So any of the lighter red segments that you actually see in the background did have a CSR score. And then any of these that you see highlighted in the brighter red with a label on it was within our top 10 for a score. So this just gives you an idea as far as beats 3, beats 1, beat 4, which is also, if you look at the Colerain Township primary report, there are the 3 beats that are leading for reported offenses. So there is a correlation between the two. I think most people, when they hear that it gets smashed, kind of all pushed together into one number, they immediately, the next question is, well, what's good and what's bad? I would say that it could be both. And the reason I say this is because this process isn't to actually identify something that is good or is bad. This process is to identify outliers within the data set. From that point, once we can identify the outliers, we can then look further to see if it's something that requires more action or if it's something that is more of an anomaly within the data. So for instance, I get one of the very first ones that I actually took a look at, our top location for this time set on one of our drives here. I was taking a look. It's 2 addresses that are coming in for this 90-day period that we're looking at. It appears to be a neighbor feud where one person has made some requests on the other person's property, and then the other person has made requests back. So maybe something to potentially dive into, maybe not. But that just gives you a simple idea as what could be done once we establish these outliers and take a deeper look. Questions for me?
You always have a very good comprehensive report. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. I have a quick question. If you want to go scroll back to the previous.
Yes.
Yep, the one right before the one we were on.
The explanation.
Yeah, the coding.
Yep.
So, all right, I'm going to statistical geek out here because now you're in my neighborhood. So when you're coding this, are you the only one coding?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and do you have, I guess, so there's a pretty consistent, so that 10 years from now, we can replicate those same codes so that we can have, okay,
correct.
Awesome, all right.
And all this is actually done through Access. So there's once the coding is actually set into place, there's no chance for error unless the query is then messed with and the code is then messed with.
Okay, okay.
I have actually a slight favor to ask. Can we send this report before the presentation to the board in the meeting, so we'll be well prepared, read, then any question we can ask you?
Yeah,
It'd be a good
I don't
idea.
see any reason why
You
we
know,
couldn't do that.
yeah. Also, you mentioned about the property crime still going up, right?
Negative. So in the 28-day, if you look at the township, the 28-day time reporting period for Colerain Township, there we go. So when we take a look at our 28-day time period, we're actually starting to see decreases, which would then kind of more hopefully be an indicator that we're actually going to start seeing these decreases spread across the 91-day and year-to-date totals as well.
Also, you mentioned about the best practice of this property things to correlate with the crime preventions. So how is going to be more, how the relationship with the community and the police department, more like teaching or telling people how to communicate with the police?
Well, you know, I honestly, I think that it provides opportunities to kind of shape this however we want. And that's the beauty of building these customized reports is this really is kind of gives us the chance to do whatever we want to it. So we're currently trying to add more layers to be able to tell, you know, a kind of more in-depth picture. And then from that point, you know, it's getting together and it's talking as a community, it's talking as a police department, it's talking as a township. What would we like to see? You know, how do we problem solve this? Because you know, crime is not one person's problem. It's not the police department's problem. It's everyone's problem. And so therefore, when we add these layers in, you know, it then kind of opens it up to everyone who wants to be, you know, a current stakeholder and wants to be part of the good process to then make a change. And so, you know, I know that's kind of a little bit more of a generic answer and probably not the way you were going for, but it truly is. It's whatever we want it to be.
And establish if there is a causal relationship.
Yes, sir.
Correlation doesn't equal causation. I say that about 100 times a day, but, and I think that's when the boots on the ground make that difference.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
And I had sent Jeff out to see if there was any other slips in the basket, but anyway, we'll go ahead and start with Bruce.
Do we have another
Yeah, he's bringing them in right now.
another presentation?
We're just going to put them on citizens' address. He'll be up next.
Okay.
He'll be up next on citizens' address.
Get this loaded. That's what I'm trying to
Okay. Okay.
Good evening, trustees. Primarily up here to say complimenting the Colerain Township Administration and trustees for evaluating the changes to the township policy book. The 6 o'clock session was good, and glad to see that we keep looking at where we need to make changes. On a side note, to vote next Tuesday and vote no on issue 7.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
Let's go with Dennis McCoy. And we do have 13 requests, so if everybody could generously keep their comments below 5 minutes, that would be super.
My name's Dennis McCoy. I live at 2451 Mars Court. For the last year, we've had a landslide in our back, and we really need help there due to a storm drain. I know Jackie just gave you guys a report yesterday, and I'd like for you guys to go over it and see something that you can do to help me out. It's been a real problem and distress on my family. So if you look at it and discuss what needs to be done, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis, and I've been out there, and I think you mentioned you had gone out there, and there is quite a landslide happening back there. Jackie's done a lot of work on it. We've found the original 1958 subdivision plans, and it's just making a decision on how to proceed. There's a problem back there. I don't know if you've been over there or not, Raj, or?
I read the Jackie's report. Now I have understanding what's going on over there. I wrote down the address. I'm going to stop by this week, look at the
Fantastic,
place.
thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, and then I would ask that you or Matt would communicate your input to Jackie on it.
Sure.
Because we don't have another meeting scheduled until April, so. But we will be out to look at it, and it sounds like Roger's coming out. I told you I'd come out Saturday and take another look at it, and we do need to make a decision if we're gonna.
I hope so.
I mean, if it's our problem, it's our problem. If it's not our problem, I mean, but if it is, we need to fix it. We just need to figure that part out, because it's a pretty big thing, so, thank you. Bill Blessing.
That's excellent timing. Thank you, Mr. President.
And Cindy Abrams, I didn't know you were coming up together. I've got, okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. We just wanted to offer some commendations here on behalf of the Ohio Senate and the Ohio House of Representatives, honoring Heather Harlow for her time in office here as the fiscal officer of Colerain Township. I just wanted to say that, you know, it's been 4 elections that you've gone through, and people tend to forget just how huge Colerain Township is. That is a massive endeavor. 60,000 people. I think if we were a city, we'd be in the top 20 or so in the state of Ohio. In addition to that, people, I think, forget the sacrifices that you've made over those 16 years. I know that I've called you at times when you're like, hey, I'm at my son's baseball game trying to juggle minutes and public records requests and all these things. The job really does not just end here. You take it home and you're doing this 24/7, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. I thank you from the bottom of my heart, not just as an elected official, but as a friend. Having worked with you diligently over the past 8 years at the State House while you've been here, there's a number of times I've reached out to Heather, and she has been a tremendous asset for some of my work up in Columbus, so I cannot thank you enough for that. And in addition, and if that wasn't enough, you have a lot of volunteer work. You're a business owner. You volunteer for NFIB, as well as She Leads and a host of other organizations. So if anybody's getting it done, it is you. And I would say this, I really hope this isn't the end for you. I hope that at some point you consider moving to some other elected position, because I will back you with whatever you want to do. I think that highly of you. So with that, I guess I'll turn it over if Cindy wants to say anything.
Well, he kind of said it all, but what I will say, as your friend, getting to know you as an elected official, of course, from a city elected official to a township elected official, and then, of course, as moms, as friends, I truly appreciate, like Bill said, your service to this community, and look forward to what the future holds for you. So, congratulations.
Thank you.
And did you have something you were going to, okay.
Well,
These are official commendations, and the state, it's way too wordy, so really, but they're beautiful.
Thank you so much.
You want to take a picture with them?
Okay.
Take a picture with them. She will take a picture.
I think Jeff's taking the minutes. You guys can just keep on going with it.
Well, keeps going off. All right.
You might get closer to the flag for a better picture. Thank you. And our next requested speaker is Kelly Pringle. Kathy, yes it is. It does say Kathy. Thank you, Kathy.
My name's Kathy Pringle, and I live
you
in
see
Green
Mike?
Township. I live in Green Township, but I'm on a committee to help with raise money for the Colerain Township Veterans Memorial. I'm working with Chris Green, my husband and I. My husband's a Desert Storm veteran. I grew up in Colerain Township. My mother's still here. My father was a World War II veteran, and he has been deceased. I'd like to use the Colerain Township Senior Center to host a bunco party, but I understand that the fee is $600. And I'm asking not just to waive the fee, but just to charge me only $1, and for you to donate the rest of the money towards and not even, if you don't donate that money, you would just only charge the committee $1 just to use this. This isn't a train show, a wedding, or, a craft show. This is going to be a bunco, and I know that the Colerain Township Police Department's going to hold one on February 4th, and my husband and I come and support that every year. But unfortunately, my sister is getting married that weekend, so we can't come. Sorry.
What is the date on that? You said February 4th?
Right, April 4th.
Okay, thank you.
So I would like to hold a bunco party to raise money towards this Veterans Memorial, and I'm asking for the committee to wait or just charge me $1 to use the community center. And I'd like to hold this several times during the year, and I won't conflict with the police department when they're trying to hold theirs to raise money also.
There's an application process to use the facility. Have you filled out the application?
I called and talked to somebody, and she said that I couldn't fill out the application until I came here to the trustees meeting and talked to you.
We give that discretion to our administrator on those, and so anybody that's in any of our facilities, is that how that works, Jeff? That flows through you?
The trustees can do it, the administrator can do it, can waive fees, so if you'd like.
Right, but I think we need to have an application first. And I think we give you the discretion on deciding what the fees are. I know we have costs because we have a custodian there for events. So I would ask that you, isn't there a spot on there to fill out the responsible person and?
Yes, there's an application, and then the administrator has the authority to waive fees, and the trustees have the authority to waive fees.
Right.
I'm not asking not necessarily to waive the fee, but maybe only charge me $10 or $1 or something. And that way you wouldn't have to say that you waived the fee, that you would just give me a discounted rate.
I think in our policy book, there are 6 different classes of rentals for that. One is township resident, one is non-resident, one is whatever the other 4 are. But I think in any case, when anybody's using that room, I think we need to have a completed application so we have a record of who applied and when the event is and who the responsible party is. And then I would leave that up to Jeff because we offer him that in the township policy book, that he's able to make those decisions. But I think the first step is applying for a date, because I don't know that the date you want is already booked or.
I couldn't make a date because when I talked to the lady at the office, she said she couldn't give me a date until I came here. And she told me that several weeks ago.
Right.
So I had missed the meeting last month.
Well, that's fine. I would say follow policy and fill out an application and submit it, and then Jeff will deal with it. But we need to know what the date is, how many people would be there. There's a bunch of specific questions on there, and that way we have a record of who's using our room. So if there is something that happens, we have.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Do I have to be a resident of?
There's 6 different classes of like a class 1, I believe, is a resident. If you're a non-resident and some residents already booked that date, they're gonna rate higher than you. There's a whole laid out policy on that. So I would ask that you fill out an application and submit it, and then Jeff or Tawana or whoever handles those will handle. But I think the first step is fill out the application.
My phone number is 923-5000, and we can talk about this.
Hey, Jeff, I had a question. How many the people?
923-5000.
The insurance covers the people coming for that event. The insurance, the township covers insurance.
I believe so.
Okay. Everybody playing the Bonko games.
Yeah, so if somebody rents one of our facilities, then we have liability insurance on the building.
Okay.
And there's cost involved in liability insurance, and we kind of leave it up to you to determine based on your status as a resident, non-resident, nonprofit group, profit group, funeral, wedding, or whatever. We kind of leave it up to you to make those decisions. So, but so we know who's there and we have a record of who's there for insurance purposes, we probably need you to fill out the application first, would be the first step, and submit it, and then call Jeff and work out the details.
Okay.
Okay?
And I
Yeah, I
think
was misled.
no, I think the policy is that the trustees can decide as well, and that's, I think I mean, that's part of the written policy in the policy book. I think that we have a different issue opening up to a nonprofit not affiliated with the township, and I'd like to see probably from Mr. Solomon, give you something else to add to the list. What is required in that sense? I mean, you know, it's one thing to have the Colerain Township Police or Colerain Township Fire, but what if we had leave your organization out, like the March of Dimes wanted to use it for some reason? What should we require in terms of?
I'm sure that's already in place because people from out of the township always already.
We have a policy that lists the 6 different classifications of
I
renters.
think once she fills out the policy and turns it in, then
Application. That should answer 95% of your questions just by following the policy and filling it out.
Is Bunko a game of chance? I've never played Bunko.
It's like
Yes.
a bingo, I guess.
And you need to come.
yeah.
You can practice at the,
A game of chance involving my wallet. This sounds like it'll end well for
You
me.
could come when they do it for the police.
Mm-hmm.
You can start there.
So, but if it's a game of chance, I think that the people, do you need a gaming license in that case, or is that required?
As we sit here today, I don't. This
Okay.
is the first time I've heard about this, so I would say, can we talk and figure it out and then come back?
Yeah, but fill out the application. That way, that would be our starting point. It lists all the rules and everything else.
Okay, can we pass that on to whoever I talk to, so I don't have to wait like 4 weeks to come back?
You can do
understand what I'm
it,
saying?
you can do that, and
Yeah.
12 hours from now, the office will be open, so, okay?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris Green, please.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, trustees. Sorry I haven't been to the last few meetings. I've been down with the influenza flu. But I'm here about the Veterans Memorial, and I want to give you guys a little bit of stats. The entire population of the United States, 7% of the entire population serves in the military. 796,267 veterans live in the state of Ohio. Population in Colerain Township as of 2018 is 58,499. There's 5,986 veterans living in Colerain Township alone. That's greater than 10% of the population. Hamilton County only has a total of 7.7% living in Hamilton County as veterans. I've asked the township about banners on the light post. I've asked the township about flags on the overpasses. I've asked about putting a pad up to put a tank in. Everything gets shot down. About the flags on the overpasses, they told me to talk to ODOT because ODOT controls the overpasses. I spoke to Stefan the last meeting, and he was here back in August or September. Emailed him, he emailed me back, said that it has to go through the township. He emailed Jeff. Last time I emailed him, he was waiting on Jeff's response, and I still haven't heard nothing. The banners, 2 years ago, I wanted to do the banners on the light post. The township wouldn't allow me to do it. They said they was gonna do it. I wanted to do it as a fundraiser. It's 2 years, nothing's been done on it. You know, this community hasn't had a Veterans Day parade since 2001. Last year, I talked to Tawana about doing something for Veterans Day and got no response. October 31st, she sent me an email and asked me to put something together. Well, I already had made plans with Green Township, Blue Ash, and a community center or a retirement center over in Cheviot, so I couldn't do nothing. I was able to go to the Veterans Memorial here, and I was very disappointed because the only thing veteran was setting the wreath. It was more about police, fire, and EMT.
not to take away from police, fire, and EMT, Veteran Day is about veterans, not police, fire, and EMTs. You know, there's 10% of the veterans live in this township. When are we going to do something for the veterans? You know, I talked to Jeff about Megaland with an exercise path, and we worked that out. I have heard nothing on it. You know, and we were supposed to have that done, you know, in November last year. I heard nothing on it. I've emailed Jeff 3 times now. He's not responded to me. You know, if it wasn't for the veterans, you know, what language would you be speaking? German, Spanish, Chinese, Japanese? You know, when's the township going to do something with the veterans? 10% of this township population is veterans. Can we do a Veterans Day parade this year?
Are you asking a question, or?
I'm asking a question.
I don't see why not, but Chris, I would say that the 3 of us and everybody up here and everybody in this room supports our veterans. I have the wonderful opportunity to introduce a meditation at the beginning of the meetings, and I thank God for this great country we live in, so don't marginalize what the rest of us are thinking. We all love our veterans, and this township has a nice memorial up at the corner of Colerain and Springdale, and the fact is that was some bonded debt, and it's not all the way paid off yet, but the bonds are being paid on time, and my previous boards of trustees, of which we're a part of that lineage now, they made quite a commitment to a very nice memorial and to our veterans by putting that up on a valuable piece of real estate right at the gateway to Colerain Township. So we all love our veterans.
Yes, there is a nice memorial at the gateway at Colerain and Springdale, but it's police, fire, EMT, park services, roads, and 1 part military. The military branches, you don't even have them in the right order up there. Anybody in the military look at them and can see they're not even in the right order.
I would invite anybody watching or anybody in a room to go up and visit that. It's a very nice place.
It is a nice place. It
So,
is, but
and we do love our veterans, so don't think that we don't.
It's the busiest intersection where you can't have a memorial. I mean, on Memorial Day up there, when Raj was speaking, there was a Rumpke truck across the street slamming dumpsters. You couldn't even hear Raj speaking, and I was sitting in the front row.
Well, we love our veterans, so don't think that we don't.
No, can we do a Veterans Day parade this year?
I see no reason why not.
Okay, who do I get with to organize it?
Would that be Tawana or?
Well, we'd have to determine, I mean, so here we are at 8 o'clock on a Tuesday night trying to figure out how to plan a veterans memorial. I would say that, you know, we have to figure out if it's something that the trustees would like the township to sponsor, then we can take that and run with it. If the trustees would like for Chris Green and his group to organize with a neighborhood somewhere to have a parade, and then the township's role in that instance is closing down Menominee or a street that you want to have your parade on. It depends on what direction you want to go in, but I don't know that
that's
just
a good
like
point. Our neighborhood has a 4th of July parade, and every neighbor comes out, and there's over 100 houses back there, and we shut down Philmole and Apple Tree and the other Apple Streets, and they have a nice hour-long event there to celebrate American independence.
Right.
So we don't have a Veterans Day parade, but the 4th of July parade, it's summer and it's a little easier to get to, but I see no reason why you couldn't organize one or make it a neighborhood event or something even bigger than that at the township level or bigger than that, so. But there's no resistance to such a thing, and don't think that there is.
It seems like everything I bring up, it gets approved, but nothing gets done with it, I come up here to speak to Jeff about the light post banners. Well, when Greg Insco was trustee, and it was all about the color and the fonts. And then when I talked to Jeff about it, Jeff said, well, the township's doing it now. I said, well, I thought that was my idea to raise money for the memorial, and now the township's doing it. And that's 2 years ago, and nothing's been done.
Well, the money you're raising for the memorial you want to construct, as I said, we have a very nice memorial, and the township still has outstanding debt on that, and I'd like to turn everything into a memorial, but I'd like them to be funded and paid for, and until we pay off the one we have at Colerain and Springdale.
I'm trying to fund it, but I'm not getting nowhere with it.
I mean, would you want the township to fund it, or?
No, I'm not. I didn't ask the town. I told the township I don't want you to fund it. Let me do the light post banners. let me sell banners and you guys hang them on the light post in May and November.
And you've submitted a formal proposal to Jeff for that.
I've talked to all the trustees, I've talked to Greg Insko, I've talked to Jeff.
Well, point well taken. I don't know what we can do at this moment because I've got other speakers here
I
and,
talked to Jeff about the exercise path, and we was gonna work it in with Megaland.
well, talk to Jackie because as you know, Megaland didn't get built last year. And if you were here earlier in the meeting.
Right, I was here for the meeting, but me and Jeff spoke about it, and the exercise path was gonna be phase one since Megaland wasn't gonna be done till later.
Well, Megaland's the three of us kind of pushed it into the next planning phase, so please talk to Jackie on that. And if you want to meet with us after this meeting, that'd be fine, but I do have a bunch of other speakers, so thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Keith Miller, please. Hello, Keith.
Good evening.
These neighbors, good to see you all here. Well, I haven't been here for a while, so I'm going to just, basically this was a catch-up meeting, but I have a few questions about the Heritage Park. Is that down on East Miami River Road? Right? Along the river, right?
Yes.
So we're building this really scrambled park down there for what? For the people of Ross? Because it's the furthest point away from where our masses live, isn't it? I'm just asking.
Sometimes people like to get out of the more suburban area and get out to a little bit more of a rural area. I guess that's why the previous boards of trustees put that there.
When I was young, that was the cruising area, There was nothing down there, We drove that area. But, you cross the bridge and you're right there. You're closer to Ross than we are to Colerain Township residents. I mean, as the masses of Colerain Township residents. And I'm really afraid the Clipper Park's going to come to Holiday Inn. I'm still afraid that's going to happen. I know they say it's not, but I'm really afraid that's going to happen. So I'm going to keep it short and sweet now, and I'm going to say good night to you all, and I'm going to exit the door.
Thank you, Keith. Larry Pete, please.
Good evening, sir.
Hello, Larry.
I am the owner of a piece of property at 6284 Conifer. I'm here to get my...
Say it again, sir.
Could you speak into the mic just a little bit better? Thank you.
Name is Larry Pete. I am here, I own the piece of property at 6284 Conifer. I am here to get my grass cutting assessment back because I feel like it was unfairly taken. And let me explain. My first contact with Colerain Township about the grass in my yard, well, first off, I bought the property in November 2017. The first contact I had was with Tom, the field person for the zoning department, on July the 5th, 2018, telling me I need to cut the grass. I responded by email immediately right back to him saying I would get it done. July the 9th, I cut it and sent an email to him saying I've cut it. And then upon saying to him, please tell me if I'm cutting far enough back, just trying to make sure I'm doing it correctly since I'm the new property owner. He also told me at that time that if I didn't get it cut, I would be assessed at the next meeting of the trustees. On January 2019, I had an assessment. Didn't quite understand why, because of the email communications I already had with the township and no other contact from there on. I went to see Jenna at the zoning department, and through the glass we got into a conversation that got extremely heated very quickly, and I couldn't understand why. I'm a new property owner trying to figure out what's going on. I later called her and set up a meeting with her and Tom. I sat down with her and Tom, and during the course of the meeting, Jenna looked at me and said, you've been assessed 4 or 5 times already. I said, no, I'm the new property owner. And I felt like, okay, this is what's going on here. You've had a problem. You don't recognize people's names, you recognize the property address, and you assessed me almost instantaneously as a new property owner because you thought I was the other person.
When did you buy the property?
I'm sorry?
When did you purchase the property?
I think it was in November 2017. And the assessment came in January of 2019. I don't believe you've had a call on that property since because we cut it regularly. and still have not been answered any question that I asked. Jenna told me, we don't communicate with you. I said, you don't communicate with me. She said, no. I said, but you started the communication. I didn't, you did. And I asked a question that's never been answered. The whole process to me did not, I don't think, fit the way it normally is done, and it was strictly from the fact that the person before me had been a problem. And I understand that if the person before, if I was that person, but I don't understand that. I think I deserve my money back because it has been maintained as it's supposed to. Dan, I've sent emails to you about it.
We've
Matt,
communicated
I've met
on
with
it.
you. I've been dealing with this for almost a year and a half, well, since January 2019. This was not handled, in my opinion, correctly. And they keep telling me it was, and I'm going, you give somebody 2 weeks' notice? And I never saw anything until I got the email from Tom. And I'm not the type of property owner that's going to blow you off. I'm going to take care of it. I know there's neighbors around that want the grass taken care of, and we have done that. And again, Jenna thought I was somebody else, and it just, instead of responding or doing anything, just immediately hit me with an assessment. So
When you bought the property, you mentioned there were previous assessments to the day you took ownership of the property?
the person before me had assessments.
When you closed on the property, were those assessments satisfied? So
To my knowledge,
I mean,
yes.
what, you would remember that in the closing documents?
I probably would have, yes. I don't remember, but I believe they were. I know that we asked the guy who was cutting the grass, and he told me he had somebody that he came in to cut it, that I do remember at the closing. Other than that, I don't remember any open assessments at that time.
But you bought it free and clear, and if you did a title search on it or wherever, you would have seen those assessments?
Yes.
I know that we've talked about this for a year.
Yes, sir. So, and I've met with Mr. Pete, and Mr. Iona has met with Mr. Pete, and Mr. Waller has met with Mr. Pete. And so we did a pretty extensive review of the case, and at every point in the case, we've followed our process. And I understand it's frustrating to Mr. Pete, but we did everything that we were supposed to do. The grass was tall. We brought it to a resolution. You guys ordered us to abate it. We gave the list to our abatement contractor. The abatement contractor, before he cuts the grass, makes sure that it's still a violation before he cuts it. He takes a picture before, we have that picture. Takes a picture after, we have that picture. And
Our
then,
abatement contractor did cut it, so we incurred that cost.
yes, and then afterwards, after the abatement is complete, then we assess the cost of the grass cutting to the property owner. And I know that this is short shrift to Mr. Pete, but Tom Bosarge, who was the code enforcement officer at the time, actually went above and beyond the standard process to reach out to Mr. Pete. Because we don't do that typically. We don't try to find an email address or a phone number. We just post the property. But Tom actually went out of his way to contact Mr. Pete. And
I understand all that.
Yep.
I understand that.
Yep.
But I was never, I had no communication before that point, none. They put a stake on the ground and put a sign on it. I never saw that. I had received no other communication by mail or anything saying that I was in violation. I believe that all of this is.
Is there a mailbox at that address?
I'm sorry?
Is there a mailbox at that address that you would have received? That's an empty lot with it. So
There was
what's
a-
our
there was a
process then? We
first-
drive a stake into the ground and put a notice on it?
I believe so. Mr. Iona, what is our process right now for vacant lots?
I don't know. I was told that there would have been a stake in the ground with a sign on it.
That
I
makes
don't
sense.
know that.
That makes sense.
No, I don't know that.
And that's probably why we went the extra mile to reach out to you personally to find out an email. In any case, from a process perspective, it appears as though we did everything exactly right. And then the appeals process, and this goes for anybody that gets a code enforcement violation, notice of violation, you have a certain amount of time to appeal that to the Board of Zoning Appeals. That's one of the things that a Board of Zoning Appeals looks at. That period is done. And then once you appeal it to the Board of Zoning Appeals, if you don't like what they say, they can overrule our code enforcement officers. And if you don't like what they say, you can actually take it to the Court of Common Pleas as the appellate court in this instance. So I would say that there is an appeals process that is built in. That process was not followed to appeal the violation. Not everybody knows, but if you call and ask and say, hey, I'm not, my grass was cut and whatever, I want to appeal this, who do I appeal it to? That's who you appeal it to. It is atypical to come to the Board of Trustees afterwards and ask for their money back after we.
But to make sure everything's being done right and legal, were you aware there was an appeal process with the Board of Zoning?
I was not.
With the zoning board?
No, I had communicated with Jenna. She never said anything about appeals. She told me flat out, the only place I can go to get my money refunded is to the trustees.
And I think that was accurate because at that time, the appeals window had closed. And so at that point, the only
But if you don't know that your property was assessed, how can you go through an appeals process if you don't even know it's in process?
that's what the email from Tom Bosarge was to.
In other words, I found out I had an issue in January of 2019. I went and saw Jenna within 2 weeks of that. She never said anything about appeals. She just literally, she jumped down my throat like I had done something, and again, now I understand, continuously, and I had not. And I couldn't understand it. And I had she held me off for another meeting until Tom came back on, because he's part-time. So she had me come back, I think it was in March or April. So I don't know if I missed the appeals process. I didn't know there was. I didn't even know I had a problem until January.
There was that email from July when the actual problem happened, right?
I had to win?
No, remember there was the email from Tom Bosarge to you in July?
I agree, and I took care of it. I told him I took care of it.
Yeah, but it wasn't.
Well, and again, he opened the door, I didn't, and on the property is a for sale sign. So that for sale sign, I could have been contacted. There's multiple ways I could have been contacted other than a stake on the property with a sign on it. Again, we were not the property owner before us. We have taken care of the property diligently since that point.
You said you bought it in November of 17, so the property wasn't noticed, and then the transaction happened, and then you received the fine. The sale was way before the fine, before the property was ever tagged. Is there and Scott, I don't expect you to know this answer. I don't know that this is the venue to adjudicate that. Is this, if he wasn't out of time, is this something that the Board of Zoning Appeals would hear?
Now he could go ahead and appeal it. I mean, pursuant to no, not now. If it would have happened recently, he's way out of time as far as being able to appeal it now. It's been assessed. Once it's been assessed, there's already been a resolution.
And we did absorb the cost of paying our grass cutter.
Exactly. So there wouldn't be a cost incurred.
I think what he's looking for is the administrative cost, because in fact we did pay to cut the grass.
Excuse me, sir. How much money you asking for?
I think it's $485 plus or minus.
And how much of that is?
$485 plus cost.
How much of that is the grass cutter versus the administrative fee?
I'd have to look into that.
There's a contract that I know that we pay per cut based on how long it takes and whatnot.
So this $485 is after you bought the property, correct?
I bought the property in 17. I was probably cutting it, but not correctly up to that point, or at least not, to meeting the standards. And then that's when I got the email from Tom on July the 5th. And I immediately responded. It didn't blow him off. I didn't do what the other guy did. And on July 9th, I sent him an email, said I cut it. Now, maybe I didn't cut it correctly, but I asked.
We can argue back and forth about, we still got a lot of people going to talk. And so what's status right now? He's going to, what are we going to tell him?
He wants to appeal it.
Appeal it. Let's
No,
not
he
appeal
can't.
it.
I mean, no, he can't appeal it now. He's well out of time. It's been years.
The grass was too tall. We cut the grass and we abated it, and then we assessed it, just like this happens hundreds, if not thousands of times a year.
In ignorance, not cutting it low enough, that's not a defense, I can tell you. I mean, ignorance is never obviously a defense of.
I will say one thing. The picture I saw of the grass, quote, being out of whack, it shows that it had been cut because the grass in the back was tall. I may have been 2 inches, maybe 4 inches out of whack on it. It wasn't like it was out of control grass cutting. That's why I switched from a weed whip to a lawnmower, so I wouldn't ever hear about this again. But I never have been answered I've looked it up now on what it is. I think it's 10 inches of what is the maximum your grass can go. And I can show you pictures of the before and after. And again, a little communication, a little conversation, I wouldn't be standing here in front of you right now.
We do tag a lot of vacant properties that are unkept.
In fact, I was told that they couldn't get back to check my lot because they were too busy on the other side of town. And I'm like, okay, I'm just a citizen trying to do right, and I just didn't feel like, no, I didn't. I was not handled, I think, correctly for the new property owner.
So what is it that you want us to do?
I just want to get my money back. I'm not after anything. I'm not trying to get more money. I've been doing this for a year and a half.
I know, I've communicated with you occasionally. Why don't you put together an item and we can look at it or put it on the agenda for the next meeting, and we can just take an up or down vote on it. And please break out the grass cutting cost, because I don't see where, if we've paid the vendor, because you did get your grass cut by our vendor.
I hear what you're saying.
Just figure out what our costs are and see if there's somewhere in the middle, or you might get 3 no's, I don't know, but I know this has been going on for a long time.
Yes.
So,
That's, I'm
favorable
glad you
to
came
guys?
here, sir. Yeah.
Is that okay to just put it on the agenda for the
Yeah, I
next
think
meeting?
that's, put a period at the,
And then you'll just get an up or down vote on it at that meeting.
So you
I
wanna come
know
back
this has
at
gone
the
on
next
for,
meeting?
you don't even need to actually come back theoretically.
oh, he'll be here, I'm sure.
I'll be here.
No, but
Unless I have another
we're not
meeting.
in the habit of, we tag vacant, abandoned properties all the time.
I understand that. I do. If I
And-
was a neighbor, I'd be mad as heck if somebody was not taking care of their property.
Right.
I would. And
Okay,
if I
well,
was
that's
that
what we'll
brother-
do, is put it on the agenda for the next meeting, but I guarantee, from my point of view as one, we already paid the grass cutter. So I don't, speaking as one, I can't see getting the money back from the grass cutter. So, okay, that's what we'll do, is
We'll talk about, we'll
put
talk
it on
about
the
some
next
more
agenda for
information.
our next meeting.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ralph Gubser?
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. I'm here about the Sovereign Drive extension where they want to connect it to Pippin. First of all, when Marty was here accepting his award, he said neighbors get together and help each other, and I think that's exactly how I feel. I know we've had Dan and Raj and Jeff come to the neighborhood, and they've, spoken with us, and we've told them our concerns, and I've reached out to Matt about the same thing. I've spoken with an attorney, and he tells me that the developer has not submitted his final proposal to the Regional Planning Commission yet. So we are planning to attend the RPC meeting, to voice our objections. And I know it's going to be really difficult because of, you guys have day jobs also, but they have their meetings the first Thursday of the month at 1 p.m. And like I said, I know that's a problem, but I was wondering if someone could not attend the meeting in person, could we have a letter drafted on the township stationery, showing support for our cause? I know it would be a big ask for you guys to come in to actually attend the meeting.
I don't think 3 of us could attend, it could only be 1, because if 2 of us were there, that would be a meeting, so.
So if someone could appear in person, that'd be great. If it's physically impossible, a letter would be, really appreciated, just to kind of bolster our case.
When is the meeting?
They have it the first Thursday of the month at 1 p.m. Now, since the developer has not submitted the proposal, I'm not sure when the meeting is that we would attend. And if, I could always.
So where is the place you want a meeting, sir?
Where?
Where's the place?
138 East Court Street.
Oh, 130,
It's downtown.
oh, downtown.
Yeah. So, like I said, if it's physically impossible to appear in person, if we could have a letter on the township stationery, that would really help our cause, I think, because Jeff has actually spoken to my neighbor Heidi, and he's told her that, they do have public input, and that a lot of times it is really helpful to your cause. So
I think
that
that-
would really help us out, because we're kind of fighting an uphill battle here with this.
And and there's a lot of neighbors back there, and I've met with them. What is the consensus, that they don't want anything, or they'll take the apartments that the guy's entitled to build, or?
Our number one priority right now is the road. We do not want the road to go through it. What he builds back there actually is rather secondary at this point. Now, if it gets to the point where the road is going to go through regardless, then we'll concentrate our efforts on what he's actually going to build back there. But if we could stop the road, that's our number one priority right now. So, and that's why going to the RPC meeting or submitting a letter stating our objections would probably go a long way. At least we'd kind of get a direction of where we are.
When you find out when the developer submits, would you please let Jeff know, and he can assign one of the three of us to go there?
And it's not actually set in stone that we're even going to go to the meeting. It depends on what the developer submits, what the lawyer recommends, what it's going to cost. But if we do decide to go to the meeting, yes, I will contact
And it's my understanding that that developer owns that land, and he's got the right to develop it under the zoning that's put in place.
Right,
And
but until it
he's
gets...
not looking for a zone change.
No.
So,
Until it's approved at the RPC meeting, we do have the right to go in and state our objections, which is really...
sure. Well, let Jeff Mills know when that meeting is, and 1 o'clock on a Thursday is a tough call for me, but maybe one of the other two can go there, so.
Sure.
Okay, well, thank you. So let Jeff know when that meeting is.
I have a question about this process. So you're talking about, I don't know if this is done. Can you, as far as a letterhead, there would have to be an actual vote by the trustees, I would think.
Yes.
To that degree.
Yeah.
And I don't know, and again, with legal counsel here, I don't know.
We don't know what the letter would say.
Right.
At this point.
It's all speculation at this point because we don't know what even the objections, we don't know what the plan is. And who's your legal counsel, if you don't mind?
Sean Callan.
Okay.
Ralph, when's the last time your group talked with the developers?
The only time we actually talked to the developer was I believe in December. He came to my house and we spoke there. We've kind of been watching to see if anything's been submitted, but we've only spoken with him that one time, as far as I know. Now, my neighbor Heidi was in charge of a lot of this up until now, and she kind of has turned it over to me, but that's the only real contact I've had with him.
Well, Jeff can contact the developer and find out when he's going to submit. He's not hiding anything. He'll tell you when he's going to submit something. So I'm going to ask Jeff to...
The lawyer is kind of contacting the RPC every so often to see if anything's been filed. Now, if he files it before, I believe it's the 19th of this month.
He can get it on the
next month's meeting.
Agenda.
Now, and does Mr. Callan represent you personally, or does you represent the residents?
Actually, right now, I have not signed a contract with him. I told him what we're doing. He said he would look into it, and then if it gets to the point where we need legal representation, I have to sign a contract, and we go from there. So right now, he's just kind of doing it pro bono.
Okay.
Thank you. Well, Jeff, I'm going to ask you to contact the developer and see if he plans on submitting by the 19th of March. And then we have, does Jeff have your contact information?
No.
Yeah, well, I know we've got an email going. Okay, so would that resolve it, just for now?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if somebody could go in person, it'd be fantastic, but a letter would...
Let us know when the meeting is. I think it'd be good information if one of the three of us went. Okay?
And I did respond to your email. I'm trying to find a date. The coronavirus has all my other job in flux right now. I don't even know if I'm going to be there, so.
Yeah, whenever you're available, I'm sure the neighbors can meet with you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Ralph.
Okay, thanks
Thank you so much for coming out.
Melissa Staley?
Good evening, ma'am.
I'm going to be super duper quick because it's 175 degrees in here.
It is very warm.
So the first thing is the Northwest Local School District spring break bags. We're started that effective immediately. The school needs all of those bags on April 1st. And there are, I've got all the details on social media. Dan, I know you're not on social media, as far as what we need and for these less fortunate kids in the district, which is a huge deal to me. Linda here was our first donator with 5 full bags, so we appreciate Linda. Northwest Passages on banning the bags can be dropped off there, or Compton Recycling. Debbie Horst is a huge supporter of helping kids and allows us to use her place as a drop-off. So we appreciate that. Secondly, trash. I'm not a complainer. I'm really not. And if there is a solution, I want to be part of the solution. I'll help pick up trash. I don't want to complain and not offer my services. I would help do anything to make it better. A week or two ago, I got in my car and just started taking pictures, and which I have for you guys. What I didn't do was submit where they are, but I can send an email with that information if you don't mind taking these.
Thank you.
They are bad. The trash is really, really bad. And so if there's something that we can, I don't know what we can do to fix it. I know that everybody, I don't know. I don't know if businesses are held accountable like they should be. But I'm seeing green spaces in residents.
Right, and you did contact me, and we had a nice conversation on the phone about a week and a half ago, and
I had
now
reached out to Raj at this point.
now that we're sitting here in a meeting and I can ask Raj a question, do you still have connections down at the probation department? And
They
can
have a
you?
list, there's a list of, Laura, she connected with the probation officer, in the chief, and they have a short of 2 crew supervisors, and the one, I can detail.
Sure.
She's up to 1 crew supervisor now, and they're in the process of hiring a new one, and she's gonna send the people up there.
Okay.
Mr.
And
President.
also, we'll talk about this with the administrator, about this other sources to clean that up.
Yeah, and I normally wouldn't go around taking pictures because it looks like I'm creepy and
I
stalking.
drove by, I saw that too.
But it's so bad. I was like, if I submit the pictures, if someone doesn't see it, they kind of get a visual of what we're seeing daily. So that I wanted to bring up, and this is going to be super duper quick. This is a complaint also. After watching the meeting, the last meeting, 3 times, because I have done that, I just very quickly, and I know this is not on the agenda, so I'm going to be quick. Your guys' vote was made on the affordable or the low housing development. I appreciate the vote. I support your vote, whether I like it or not. I will always support the vote. But there were different things that were mentioned during that meeting that I felt to be somewhat bullying. And as a person that makes under some of the amount of money that was mentioned, $65,000, $60,000, there was such a big stink about some of these things. I called a realtor because I kind of felt like maybe I'm not even worthy of living in Colerain Township if I make under that amount of money as a homeowner. There were people that said, that some of the things they just felt so mean. And I wish that I don't know if you guys go back and watch the meetings after you sit here for 3 or 4 hours, but I usually watch them all even after I leave. There was a statement made, people who are actually making money and they pay the taxes to run the township. So I was like, are my taxes now based off my income or my property value? And, they were saying that we pay the highest property taxes in the state of Ohio. That's not factual. We're not the lowest, but we're certainly not the highest. Then it got into renters, talk about renters with transient students, bringing problems to schools. Those types of students keep our schools declining. Are the kids, those type of kids will need a place to hang. They're going to have to go to school with our kids. I just felt if you go back and you actually watch that meeting, if you are a child that's interested, a young adult that's interested in local government or something like that, to watch a meeting like that would sway you not to want to be involved. It was bullying.
Well, we do let people say what they want to say. We don't control their speech, so.
I felt like it was judging people based on money that they make or money that they don't make. Usually the same people that are judging are people you never see their boots on the ground. They're not volunteering, they're not picking up trash or being at events. Then it was renters bring junk vehicles, and I'm not saying that they don't, but I'm sure Mike or Laura would know if just renters have junk vehicles. in the township, you know, and then there was renters have no income, but they have better gym shoes and cell phones than working people. Some of this I just felt was stereotyping. It's misleading, and I just wish that if you get a chance, you'll go back and look at it.
I'll see if I can take a look at it,
You know,
but
just because it just felt very hurtful, and again, I'm a huge volunteer in the township, and I love Colerain, but that meeting and watching that was enough for me to call a realtor. I felt like it was hurtful. So if you can take a look at the meeting, just so you
Sure.
can see how people they're very
I
judgmental.
was sitting up here listening to everyone who spoke. I still listen to everybody who
I
speaks.
appreciate your
and-
night. I'm leaving. It's really hot. Have a good night. Thanks.
Thank you, Melissa. Kerry Davis? Hello, Kerry.
Good evening.
Preventative. Okay, first off, I think it's gotten to the point where having one meeting a month is rude. Look in this audience and look at all the gray hair and look at where we are in the agenda. I think it's just rude for you guys to have one meeting a month. I think it has to be split up. It's not
That starts
fair.
in April, and we let everybody speak, so it takes time for that to happen.
Well, you need more than one meeting a month. It's just not working. I have to correct a couple things on the record and the meetings I've missed. It was said at one of the meetings that the Light Up Colerain didn't, it failed to launch. The Light Up Colerain event failed to launch. That is incorrect. I received an email from Mr. Mills stating that you two trustees plus Mr. Insco directed him to cancel our event. And I don't believe you guys told him to do that, but the email to me said, I believe this is almost a word-for-word quote, "I'm sorry, there's going to be no Light Up Colerain this year," unquote. We exceeded our goal on fundraising. We exceeded the number of displays for the Christmas walk. We had over 24 volunteers who put together the Santa booth, we had school teachers, art teachers, who had staffed ornament making booth. Like I said, we exceeded our fundraising goals. Everything was set up, and then I received the email 2.5 weeks before the event was to launch from Mr. Mills telling me that you and Mr. Unger and Mr. Insco directed him to cancel our event. So I wanted to correct the record. That event was set to go. We had done everything we were supposed to do. We did everything on the township's checkbox of do this, this, this. We did everything and exceeded it, yet you guys, for some reason, directed him to
No,
pull the
my
plug on the event.
recollection was that you applied for it in a very short time window, and was that what it was? Jeff?
What are you referring to? Are you referring to
The
the
Light
grant?
Up Colerain, we did have an event that turned out pretty nice out here with Light Up.
It was really bad. Tawana told
No,
me
I thought it was a nice
at our event that she expected at least 400 people would attend, even though it was a first-year event. So we had 400 people denied a community-wide event. We had over 24 volunteers who had offered to work in the program and do the event, and over 24 businesses who donated money, services, or displays. We did everything we were told to do. So kind of like what Chris says about, he tries to do a project and then you guys pull the rug out from under him and won't cooperate. I don't know why you guys canceled that event when everything was done. There was a reference to it of there isn't enough time. That letter came the day after I sent an update to you all saying, we got it all done, yay, we are doing this, it's all done. The next day, I got a message canceling the event. So I just wanted to correct the record. The Light Up Colerain thing went great. You guys let down a whole lot of residents and a whole lot of businesses who participated and were working on it. And I just wanted the record clear that we did do what we were supposed to do, every single thing. Another thing on the record I wanted to correct, and I'm not going to use names out of respect, but you stated months ago that in reference to the $60,000 in tax money that was not returned, that, oh, well, Miss Davis did, you said this on the record, Miss Davis didn't bother to post that when she got the letter on any websites, and I want to correct you, it was on 5 different pages on September 12th. And the reason I haven't brought it up is because I've referred it for criminal prosecution with the IRS. So I wanted to clear those 2 things up. Now on to the current things. The public information, the private information that we are releasing about people's email addresses, I think that's very dangerous. Somebody was talking about this earlier. Oh, it was Matt brought it up, and thank you. But for the township to release information that is very commonly used as login information for a variety of services, apps, and even Medicare and Social Security, people use their email address. And for you all to put this out on the internet, even though it could be a public record if requested, was highly unconscionable and dangerous. And whatever you did when you gave them the Social Security number, you guys need to do that for everybody whose name you put out there and their email address, because most of them use that as a login for multiple programs, and you just subjected them to fraud and theft. So, and I was reading up on the PII policies across the state of Ohio. You're not supposed to use a record for a purpose for which it was not intended. And those records were only provided to you for the purpose of receiving data from the township. You did not give them any warning. You didn't tell them you were going to use their information in a way to maliciously harm them. So I think we need to revisit that, and there might be some compensation done. As far as you claim that because of Kathy and Stephanie, our little I-team, we got our own little I-team in Colerain, and I appreciate their work a whole lot, and everybody else who works hard. You said we're not having committee meetings because of their lawsuit. No, they didn't ask you to stop having committees and community involvement. They asked you to follow the law, like every other political jurisdiction in the state of Ohio has to do. So just fix the errors you were making. Now, you said you weren't having any committee meetings, except you were having the playground people meet, and that too is a committee, and it is defined under the law as an ad hoc committee. And you're required in those circumstances to follow the same rules on notice, minutes, and executive session that you do in this meeting. So I don't know why we're doing that, but you blame Kathy and Stephanie, and I thank them for being our little I-team.
Thank you. Carrie, one more item, because you're already a little bit over, but
Okay,
can you
let's
wrap it
talk
up?
about, oh gosh, I'm the only person tonight who's had that
Well,
said to them.
I'm tracking down how long everybody takes, and
Okay.
just trying to.
On the playground, let's talk about the playground. I think you guys have done, if you're still here, I think you guys have made a great step in the right direction. There's many elements in it that I appreciate, but I want to submit to you today, people are fairly disturbed that there has been so little public input. 5 people or 7 people from this community who are really, I don't know a single one of them, are the only ones who were allowed to give input
On the
the
playground?
development.
On the Megaland?
Yeah,
I thought that you had it displayed out in the rotunda and had.
not on this not on this
We
design.
received lots and lots of feedback on the playground.
Okay, go ahead, Carrie.
That's a lie. The program you got feedback on was rejected by the Board of Trustees, and you were told to go back to the drawing board. Everything you're presented today is brand new to the vast majority of the residents, other than those few people on that committee that never allowed us to come and attend and watch and participate. I wanted to share with you that I did a little Facebook poll and had it on multiple pages. And first off, the response is so much more positive. Everybody, I think, feels you're going in the right direction. And so that's the good news. It feels a little bit ad hoc, mix and match with the different styles of the equipment. And the survey I did said, what are you looking for? Are you looking for more of the modern appeal, the modern look, or are you looking for more something like the Frontier? 84% of the people on each and every page that I posted it on, this is favored. It's been favored for over a year and a half. And so I hope we can use it and the continuity to it in the theme.
Thank you, Carrie.
So there's a lot of good features and we've made a good step forward, but I think we're rushing it. And I'd like to know, when is it going to be my chance to speak out to the people doing the designs about
If you
what
were
I
here
want?
earlier for the meeting, we suggested people contact Jackie because, as you know,
There's no
outside of
public
these...
record of it, sir. when we
Outside,
do it
well, there's
that
a
way.
public record right now that's being filmed, so your voice has been heard.
Well, first off, you're cutting me off.
I've never cut you off, Carrie, so that's incorrect.
Well, do you want me to tell you on the public record? I mean,
Sure,
I'm
but-
just
but
asking
in
what
all-
I'd
in all
like you to
sincerity,
do.
in all sincerity, wrap it up, I've got one more speaker, so.
I would like you to have an open forum, sir. Just have a little town hall next week and let people come and talk on the record about what they want so everybody can feel involved. I think we got a positive direction going here. Let's build on that positivity. Let's nail this because I think you're going in the right direction. And let's be inclusive. Just have a little meeting.
Thank you, Carrie.
Let everybody contribute.
Thank you.
One more thing. The gentleman who talked to you about the assessment, you charge him $400. It costs $80 for his grass to be cut.
It costs us money to operate this township on a daily basis, and we have
But the
employees.
statute says, and yeah, I am practicing a little law here, aren't I?
Are you an attorney?
The statute, no, but
Okay.
I am responsible for the law and obeying it and understanding it as
Okay.
much as everybody else. So I'm going to share with you what I read. And it said that the township is allowed to charge the person being assessed, quote, the cost of the abatement, unquote. I made a public records request over a year ago since it cost $80 to cut his grass, what's the other $320 you're charging him
Oh,
for?
we're sending a person out there to look at it, and we have an office staff, and we have a building with lights, and we have overhead cost.
You're not allowed to do that. That's why the statute says you're only allowed to charge the cost
I think you
of
might have stepped out of the room
abating.
at that point, but we asked Jeff to bring that item back at the next meeting, so
Yeah.
don't say that we're not giving that guy an extended look at it. So I really got to get my last speaker up, Carrie, so thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Take care. Kathy Moore? Hello, Kathy.
Hello.
Good evening.
First of all, I wondered if the board, they approved a merit increase for employees last year, and I understand those have been implemented, and I just wanted to know if the board was in agreement with all of those increases that were given.
I think you sent that question this morning. I did send it to Jeff, and we...
I'm asking if the board is okay with
We
this.
approved the pool of merit
Right.
increases.
And now you've seen the raises. Do you agree with all of those?
I don't have it in front of me, but I know you sent a question, and I think Jeff will address that during his thank you. That looks consistent with what,
Well, I'm asking my elected officials a question. I'm not asking
we
Mr.
approved
Mills.
this at a meeting, Kathy. We already approved it.
Not the increases themselves.
We approved the pool, and
Right.
Jeff does the evaluations. He is our day-to-day operations
So you
person.
agree with those?
Well, I'd have to go through them one at a time, but go on.
Those raises are from 2% up to 15%. And there are several employees that were hired last year, say in September, October, and they were not included in this increase. However, there was one employee who happens to have the same last name but spelled different as another employee, and this employee, who was hired in September or October, received a 3 or a 4% increase. I don't know which one it is because I'm not sure which one is which. But the one employee who was recently hired received a 3 or 4% increase.
They're both on here, and you've got them highlighted.
Okay?
One's got a 3%, the other's got a 4%. I don't know that answer. The increase was either $23.59 a year or $23.19 a year. But I don't know. I didn't put these initials on here. I'm guessing you did.
I did, yeah, because there's two different employees. And like I said, Ms. O'Connell was hired last year, Mr. McElravy, they did not get increases, but this one person received either a 4 or 5, I don't know, because it's not correct, something's not correct with it.
Okay, well, I'll ask Jeff to look into that, because I don't know the answer right now either. I mean, what do you want me to make up something?
No, I'm asking, you're the people that are
Well,
supposed
Kathy,
to be
you've got, what
informed.
you've gotten, so people at home can see this, she's
And you
also
said-
this document to put an R and a G in front of two names.
You say I
and
sent it to you?
I don't know which one, but this
Well,
R and
why do
G
you find
wasn't
out?
on there.
That's the question. Why don't you find
I
out?
just said I'd
don't
ask,
know.
hey Kathy.
And we refer it to Jeff. I get it.
Kathy, Jeff's here during the day, and that he's the guy who can answer these questions. I can't answer this right now.
One man said before. Oh, I've sent Mr. Mills messages and I haven't gotten, or Chris, wasn't any response or whatever.
Jeff
Anyway, next thing I have to say is when you were talking about the vacation time, what you need to eliminate is 2 weeks vacation with no time on the books. What you are giving is somebody who walks in the door, 2 weeks vacation. You need to eliminate that nobody gets vacation until after 1 year. Then you don't have to worry about somebody took vacation and if they leave, we'll try to get it back, all that stuff. You just don't give anybody vacation until after they've been here a year. I think that's common with all other places, but you kind of danced around it.
I don't think so, Kathy.
So
No, for those at home that didn't see that part of our work session, we talked about accruing vacation hours on a per paycheck system. We talked about if an employee would leave before their first year, we would withhold their unearned vacation from their last paycheck. So it's my feeling that we did take a step towards resolving it, and what Kathy said and what we talked about at the work session are two different things. But please continue.
Did the board agree to not
We do
allow?
not make decisions in work session.
Okay. Is the board going to consider not giving a vacation to someone who has worked here less than a year?
If you'd have
And
been
you
here
can
for the
answer
work
that at the
session.
next meeting.
Okay, yeah, if you would have been here at the work session,
was
you would have
here.
heard that.
And you danced around the whole issue.
I don't think so. There's
No, I
three
do.
of us that are
I
inputting
do.
on it.
Anyway, and also on your rehire employee, this person is getting a full pension and are now making almost $60,000 here. Got an increase. And I ask you why? This person is retired and rehired. Why are they getting an increase? As a couple of months ago, I asked about the Schuster Court property, and I did send you an email regarding this recently, that Mr. Mills had said the township was going to purchase this property. So, and I asked why it didn't go through the CIC. And I sent the board an email. I got a response from Mr. Unger that said the Board of Trustees did not make the decision to transact or not transact the Schuster Court property through the CIC. Our discussions among the 3 trustees were during public advertised meetings. And then, in the minutes for November 12th, Mr. Mills states that regarding the CIC and Schuster Court project, the Board of Trustees approved it.
We approved demolishing the building that was burned up.
I asked who decided to not put it through the CIC. That was the question.
Okay.
Mr. Mills said you did, and you said you didn't.
I don't think we ever made a decision on it. Go on.
So things are happening that you didn't make decisions
Well,
on?
we have that particular piece of property, now that you brought it up, is still owned by a deceased person. There's $7,800 and some dollars in tax arrearage on it. There's a demolition cost that, for the property. And for those that don't know, the property had a very severe fire. It had collapsed into its foundation. It was a very dangerous place, and any kid that would have walked in there could have fallen into that foundation. So to provide some facts to what Mrs. Moore is saying, we made an emergency, voted on decision to get that demolished so that we could eliminate the hazard.
Did we pay to have it demolished?
I believe we've paid for that, but we're still waiting on reimbursement from CB, from the grant money.
Okay.
We've been told we would get it. The county doesn't issue stuff that quick, so.
Okay, and are you positive you're going to get the community development block grant
We've
reimbursement?
as far as I know, we've been told we are getting it and it's coming, but regardless, what you have here was the decision of an elected board to eliminate a very serious hazard in the township, and that's what happens when
Okay.
you have an elected form of government where people are elected to make decisions.
And we're waiting for the land bank? For what reason?
Kathy, I don't, that's a
You
real
don't
estate.
know. What the heck? You
Okay.
don't know anything.
Kathy, I probably know a lot more than you do.
And I know
so.
you don't ask. You get these emails from us, and you ask Mr. Mills, and whatever he says,
Okay.
you just, that's it.
Well, we certainly.
Okay,
know two
as
different things
you
to be the
are
truth.
aware, there are several, or, I mean, many Freedom of Information Act requests that have not been fulfilled. Ms. Harlow leaves as of March 31st, and in the policy manual, it states that any employee, including the designated records custodian, who willfully fails to fulfill record requests by failing to adhere to this policy in your policy book may be subject to disciplinary action as established within the Colerain Township personnel policy. So, I know I asked this once before. What is that punishment or that disciplinary action? And because there are many outstanding record requests, who is going to suffer that consequence? Okay. And as far as the Schuster Court Community Development Block Grant, that fund is to receive grant funds. You're putting money in there to make it look like you've received these grant funds. You can pay anything out of the general fund. You should pay it out of the general fund. If you get those funds, then you can reimburse it.
Thank you for your guidance. And that's all of our. I understand that, Kathy. And that said, everyone was allowed to speak.
Dan, I didn't sign in, but I'd like to speak.
Okay. It is 9:06 p.m. and we have a pretty full agenda here. And if you'd like to talk to any of us, I promise you I will hang around after the meeting.
So you said I can't speak?
You did not. Did you fill out a request to speak like everyone else did? Thank you, Stephanie. It's not that. It's just we've got an agenda here and there's people waiting for certain items.
Mr. President, I'm going to appeal the decision of the chair here. I think that we gave everybody else extended time, and I mean, you know, I think it's only right that we give.
She would need to fill out a form, Matt, and she has not done that. So
I think it's.
I think in the past, sorry for the microphone. In the past, we've done it when the people didn't fill out the form, and they will come ask us to go. We granted them to talk.
it sounds like two of you want to, so following the extensive criticism we just got for lack of paperwork, come on up. So come on up, Stephanie, if you'd like to speak. We don't have any paperwork from you, and we'll probably take criticism from Mrs. Moore at the next meeting for not having paperwork, but have at it.
I'd like to say that I really enjoyed the presentation by Clear Caption this evening. That is a wonderful, free service that is offered, and I would like really to see that go out on our social media site and our township website. My mother-in-law was deaf and had Doppler implants in her ears, and for many years she was unable to converse with a lot of family members and things like that, and she received this, and it was truthfully a godsend to her in reconnecting with friends and families that she could not converse with for many years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted that lady to come up. A lot of people don't know about that program. Thank you.
Social media seems to be a very hot topic this evening. Mr. Wallard has brought it up a couple times with the closing of universities and schools and affecting our immediate area. I was wondering if that was something that our We Thrive initiative here in Colerain Township is addressing, and have they met, and is this something that's on their radar? If we could have maybe an update from that.
We're going to have
also.
a report later this evening on actions that the township has taken.
Great, thank you. Then I know that Chief Denny has a session to address later, and I would like to ask about the false alarm process that the township implemented back in, I believe, October of 2019. This was a third-party involvement with a firm out of Texas to help control and receive revenue and discourage people from having so many false alarms through education process. I'd like to know how many companies have signed up through that company, as well as how much money has been received from that, and if the police has seen a huge drop in the false alarm responses because of the education that was taking place in this. And then one other question I have is, Mr. Mills and Mr. Solomon earlier in a meeting shared that myself, Stephanie Wright, at 3729 Blue Rock Road, email sarmkar@gmail. It was involved in a lawsuit with the township. I was wondering if they could please, at this time, share all the other lawsuits that the township's involved in and those names.
Thank you. Is that any other comments?
I'd like to hear
I'll leave that for his administrative report, what he's allowed to.
will happen this evening.
What he's allowed to share, I'll leave that for his administrative report.
Thank you.
And that would conclude our speakers. And the next item is administrative reports.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Unger. Let me pull up the projector again.
And while Chief Denny's sitting back there, and Mark, if at our next meeting, if you could put together a report on how that, I realize you can't do it right this second, but for our next meeting, if you could put together a report that Mrs. Wright has talked about. Thank you.
So, Mr. Unger, before we get on the administrative reports, could I just take a second to get some feedback from you guys on how you would like for us to address questions that originate from citizens' address? Because
well, tonight we probably handled a bunch of them. I realize we probably should just let people speak. That's why it ran over. But
sure. And that's fine. If there could be questions, and I think we've talked about this before, but if you would like answers to questions, it would be really helpful to send those to us beforehand, as far before as possible, and so that we can research them and get good answers.
Several of those didn't get to you till late this morning, and if we had them a few days earlier, you might have more information.
Yes,
so
sir.
I understand.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, we'll begin our administrative reports this evening with the Fire Department and Chief Frank Cook.
Good evening, Chief.
Good evening, Board. Start off with our emergency incident activity for the month of February. The department was dispatched to 633 emergency medical incidents and 138 fire and service call related incidents. And then we were responded into Springfield Township 31 times during the month. Only one fire of significance occurred during the month, and that was on February the 15th in the 2800 block of Wyndon Drive up off of the Houston and Pippin Road area. The estimated fire loss for the month was $28,610. Our incident response time, average response time for arrival of the first unit was 4 minutes and 55 seconds. Our first unit on scene, less than 6 minutes, was achieved 77.2% of the time during the month. The second item is, as the township's lead agency as far as emergency preparedness and emergency management, I just wanted to address what the local government is doing and answer any questions that I possibly can with the little bit of knowledge I have regarding the coronavirus. So, since, the virus itself, has taken up a vast amount of daily and evening news across the country, and right now here in the state of Ohio, I think it was just as of yesterday that there were 3 cases in Cuyahoga County that are being addressed. But as far as here locally, I will start off by saying that now is the time to prepare for the potential impact of the virus and have a plan to stay informed. Quite simply, I would say as a person, simple measures as far as healthy habits of, washing your hands, covering your nose and your mouth. If you've got the coughs or the sneezes or, something along those sorts is, really the, probably the leading thing that you can do to minimize this. Washing your hands, using hand sanitizer, those types of things, is probably about the most simplistic measures that one could employ to kind of control their susceptibility, to this illness. As a local government, as a fire department, we are in constant communication on a daily basis with information from the CDC, the Center for Disease, Ohio Public Health, and the Hamilton County Public Health District, and also from the Hamilton County Emergency Management Agency. And if you're familiar with the Alert Colerain system that we've recently engaged with, there's actually information out on the table about the Alert Colerain. You can receive regular updates and alerts in regards to the status of the coronavirus. As far as the actions that we're taking, as far as a department and a township, I'll back up, and I don't want to insult anybody's intelligence, but the actual disease or the virus centers around the respiratory system. And anytime a person coughs or sneezes, those droplets that come from your body become airborne. Okay, and then if you're within close proximity in the estimated, I guess, distance that is being disseminated is 6 feet, you can either breathe in those droplets or you can absorb them through your eyes. But that's how the virus is actually spread and contracted by human beings. As far as contact surfaces, again, if you cough or sneeze and those droplets, they end up laying down on the surfaces, whether it's the countertops or whatever. If you were to become in contact with it, through touch, and then you touch your eyes or your face or your stuff, that's just another means of being infected. So, as a department and as a township, we've disseminated some information out to our employees to try to maintain good health. Good habits of, again, washing your hands, keeping clean surfaces as far as work surfaces. Anytime you come into contact with customers, for service, again, hand sanitizer, wash your hands, on a regular basis. The fire department, we've ramped up and ensured that our personnel are following our infectious control policies. We've had an infectious control policy in place for a number of years. Historically, there have been several other health outbreaks, and so we've had policies in place for many years, and so we're just ramping up and making sure the employees are engaging in the policies in regards to that. Not to sound like an alarmist, but if one was to call 911 in any emergency medical services, the communication center, the 911 call takers will maybe ask some more questions of you to try to determine if your illness or situation puts you at risk, just in an effort to notify us so that we can be more prepared as first responders. I have some employees of the department that are active right now in a few local and regional task force to address public health issues. So, right now this coronavirus is at the top of their agenda. I even have one employee that's deployed through the National Medical Assistance Team. She's right now down at Lackland Air Force Base. So some of the people that were held in quarantine during cruise trips and things like that are still, being evaluated. And like I said, I have an employee who's a paramedic as part of that National Assistance Medical Team. So again, I can't emphasize enough just, good hygiene, preventative and precautionary measures, washing your hands, covering your mouth and nose if you cough and sneeze, and just having the situational awareness of those around you that may appear to be sick. I would certainly keep my distance. I don't know, again, I personally don't think that we're at a point that we need to be on guard 24/7. I mean, but I certainly would keep doing what you're doing, but just be situationally aware as to what's going on around you. So at this point, I guess I would ask any questions of the board in regards to.
I know the Hamilton County Board of Health has issued some guidelines on the coronavirus and all other viruses and flu strains, which they have addressed. So, and we kind of follow what the Board of Health directives are. So thank you.
Hey, Chief, thanks for making all the precautions measures. And actually, I was planning to contact you, sit down, talk with you, what we do for Colerain Township. I think it'd be a great idea also. Each fire station, they have the signs, the billboard signs, maybe put the points like cautious measure, wash your hand, cover your face, something. I know you guys do a very active campaign, one time installing fire alarm in the house, things like that. Also during the winter time, you always put like carbon monoxide detectors and stuff like that. I think it'd be a great idea, put each fire station in billboards, something about, washing your hands, something, kind of awareness. People will know.
I hear you, but we only have a limited amount of space.
Yeah, something, please.
But perhaps through Circle or through the township website, we can provide links as to where to find more comprehensive information.
And we have done that now.
Chief, you will be the lead agency if and when a vaccine, if we go through this an extended period of time, right?
Well, we have in place plans to be a point of distribution. Right now we continue to develop our emergency operations plan, which will be more comprehensive. But right now we are a point of distribution for any mass distribution of medications and things like that, should it become that point. So, I'm hoping that the medical professionals and the scientists are able to get this thing under control. We've survived other outbreaks, around the U.S., and I'm confident that we'll survive this as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
The last item I have is, Heather, On behalf of the Department of Fire and EMS, I want to thank you for your service, support, and assistance over the years. We certainly wish you the best in your future endeavors. Thanks again.
You know, I'm a Citizens Fire Academy graduate.
Absolutely.
So you guys can't get rid of me that easily.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. Thanks for all the hard work.
Thank you, Chief.
Appreciate it.
Next, we have Chief Mark Denny in the Police Department.
Good evening, Chief.
Good evening. Just real quick on Brandon's presentation earlier this evening, you'd asked a question at the last meeting about changes that we make to our responses, and we did several responses over the last month based on that report. We made a public article about, excuse me, about auto theft and how to prevent that. We also scheduled meetings with all the retail loss prevention people to try to talk to them about placement of certain items and how to quickly get us on scene before they have an issue. So we've covered that, and we also focused patrol on one topic we had with catalytic converter thefts. We were able to use our special investigative unit. We were able to identify a suspect and get that in hand. So we do use this data on a regular basis to try to guide our response, and I'm really excited to see how we're now going to start bringing in zoning and property maintenance and adding that in with the crime to see what kind of impact that has. I think we think we know that has an impact. We want to be able to prove it and actually make responses based on that. So
thank you so much for that follow-up. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, and it's important. It's nice to have the data, but it really doesn't mean anything if you don't do anything to react to it. So we were absolutely doing that. For the month of January, the police department responded to 3,251 calls for service. Nearly 60.8, so 61% of those we responded within 5 minutes, and that's up from last month and from last year. The officers made 174 arrests, 256 traffic stops, resulting in 5 OVI arrests, and we referred 30 criminal cases to our investigators. Lieutenant Mike Owens and I visited the Sydney Police Department a few weeks ago. They are considered to be pioneers in the area of officer wellness. They have a program that addresses taking care of their officers long-term and financial, mental, medical, and a bunch of different ways to make sure that they're not treated just like pieces of equipment, but that they're actual people that bring value to the department. So we got some ideas from them. Lieutenant Owens is currently writing his master's thesis on officer wellness programs, and we're going to implement our own program here in the coming months to better provide for our officers and make sure they have the things they need to be successful. And a few weeks ago, on February 12th, I began a process of meeting one-on-one. One of my big goals for the year was to meet one-on-one with every employee for 2 hours. So we're about halfway through that, and we're going to get a list together of items and suggestions that they've got for bettering our service, and internal and external, and we're going to have that, and we're going to start making good improvements on that as well. So that's what we're working on in the police department. And to follow in Chief Cook's shoes, I want to thank Heather. You came to the township a month before I did, so I've not known anything but you in this whole time. So you've been a very vocal and supportive person for the police department, and we always appreciated you. So as a friend and a police chief, we're going to miss you, and I hope you have a wonderful life, having Tuesday evenings off every month, and don't forget us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief, I really want to thank you for going with me to one of the residents in the Alt House around Thompson area to listen to their some concerns, and you promised the people over there then more visibility of our police cars there. Also, putting police cars there.
Yeah, we've had a pretty good. We scared a few people in the neighborhood having the police car.
I think it's a dramatic change, and you are going to talk to the people, especially in the people who live on the west side of Colerain Township. The more police presence is great, and thank you for going with me, talking to the residents.
Well, and thank you for bringing it to our attention. We look for ways to engage with people on the west side of the township. They don't use our services as much, and it's any opportunity we have to take a few minutes to explain situations to them. Maybe it's laws or our policies or our response protocol. It's a good opportunity for us to have that time with them.
That's a great idea. That police, what you do them.
We hope it helps. I'm going to check back with her tomorrow and just see what kind of progress it's making for her, and we've got some other ideas to help out over there.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you for going as well.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Chief. Thanks for everything.
Thank you, Chief. Next, we have Ms. Jackie O'Connell and the Public Services Department.
Hello again. I just had a couple of thank yous that I wanted to give on behalf of the Public Services Department. First off, I want to start with thanking the YMCA and Program Manager Nora Dashley. They have been doing services, providing services for our seniors for 5 years now, and they've done an exceptional job. They've grown the program, and we're very happy to have them with us in Colerain Township. Secondly, I wanted to give a big shout out to Chris Hessen from the Colerain Historical Society and all her volunteers who helped with the inventory and assessment of our historical cemeteries. She had a bunch of people together who went out and crowdsourced the cemetery inventory for us, which is a big job. So that was part of our strategic initiative, one of our strategic initiatives this year. So now we can take a look and see what the actual condition of all of our cemeteries is. So thank you very much, Chris. And I know Stephanie, you helped with that too, and all the other volunteers. We're very appreciative of that. It saved a lot of staff time, and got a lot of people in the cemeteries too. So, and the I also wanted to thank the Megaland Replacement Advisory Committee for providing input, and the public providing input to the playground design to get us to this next step. So just thank you for all the citizens who have helped us out throughout the last month.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you.
Ms. O'Connell. Next, we have Mr. Mike Iona, the Planning and Zoning Department.
Good evening, board members. As far as the numbers go, for the month of February, we had 63 permits come in. We had 2 BZA applications. One of those was withdrawn due to them coming into compliance with the zoning ordinance. So it was an appeal of our interpretation, and through the appeal process, they came into compliance. So win there. And that's it for the numbers this month. I do want to touch base on a couple projects. Big things happening in the department. The first thing we have is the comprehensive plan. It's been a very busy beginning part of the year with the comprehensive plan. This is one of the big projects of the year, as you all know. But what we've done over the past month, we've been really hustling. I know at the last meeting, we had talked about me presenting at the Historical Society. That was done. It was a very good presentation. We got some good input. And, it was very informational to get information out on what the plan is and what we intend to do with it. We've also done the rotating rotunda, as you've seen over the past couple board meetings. We're actually taking that rotating rotunda display with more information about what the comp plan is, what kind of information we'd like, and how citizens can get involved. And we're taking that out into the community. So actually, just today, we installed a series in the library in Groesbeck. And we're also looking to do an installation in the mall. So be on the lookout for installations about the comp plan throughout the community. Our Facebook page, we launched that earlier this month. To date, we've got about 3,100 interactions and reach with 120 followers, which in the world of social media for government bodies is pretty good for less than 30 days. We're doing an open house next week for the comp plan project on Tuesday before the zoning commission meeting. And one of the things that I'm really like about the way we're doing our public input is oftentimes the traditional method of input is you come out to a meeting and you spend a lot of your day or a lot of your night in a town hall setting or an open house. And everywhere I've worked, we frequently get the same frequent flyers. And if you have 10 meetings, you get the same 45 people at 10 different locations. Is that really input? And over the years, I've found that it's really not, and you're guiding your comprehensive plan, which is a vision for the entire community, all 60,000 approximately residents of Colerain Township, and you're guiding it based on 10 events where you had about the same 45 to 65 people. So what we want to do is we want to take the input to our people. And what we've done is work with Cages to create a digital map that people can go in, access online, whether it's at the library, whether it's through the project website that we'll be releasing over the next couple weeks. But they can go in, they can drop a pin on an area like an intersection, a place, just anywhere in the community. And they can write a comment, whether it's good, a bad, strength, weakness, opportunity, threat, something they'd like to see. And that comment gets posted anonymously on that map, and then other residents can go in, add comments, or they can like that comment. And if there's a comment that gets a certain amount of likes, it gets a heart, and then it moves to the top. But it's just one extra level of input that we'll be pushing throughout this process to make sure, that we've done everything we can to get public input. As always, I just would like to mention to you all and anybody watching at home, staff is very happy to meet with any groups or any individuals one-on-one to get their input throughout this process. As many of you know, as I've said, over the past 4 or 5 months, at every presentation I do, this is a project that's been going on for 4 years, and it's time to take this thing across the finish line. The best part about a comp plan is getting the ideas together and forming a vision for the community and working with people. But the most fun is actually implementing that vision and seeing the fruits of your effort come to life. So I'm really excited about that. I actually did a little research while I was sitting there, and our last comp plan was done so long ago that Amazon wasn't really a thing. It was adopted 2 years prior to the development of an iPhone, the first prototype. So a lot's changed. As I sit here today, I think the number one priority for the township is to, kind of look at what this vision is coming out of the recession. The economy's doing very well. What does our community look like in 10, 15 to 20 years? And what should the planning staff, what should township services, what should our community groups be focusing on in the future to make that a reality? So just kind of wanted to touch base on the comp plan, what we're doing, the process. Again, we've been doing significant outreach. I've been going out along with my staff, and we've been meeting with different organizations, professional groups. You name the group, you name the advisory body, committee, board, whatever. We're meeting with them to get their input, to get their feedback, to get their professional input so that we can start to create the content of this plan. So that's it for the comp plan. I'd also like to touch base on the Northbrook connectivity study. We did a kickoff meeting last Thursday that was held at the Southland Baptist Church. This is a free project for the township, and this is where staff is really teaming up with Miami University. And these are students who are about to graduate, so they've been in their classes for about 3.5 years. They've got a lot of educational experience and knowledge, but they don't have as much, on the ground in the field experience. So this is really a trade-off where, we give them real-world experience, and in return, they give us about 15 weeks or a full semester where they go and do research, mapping, graphics. They do an analysis, and they're pretty good at it. And they do an analysis on this area for us, or a problem. And what we're looking at here in Northbrook is how we can leverage, I got this really planner, geeky kind of way of saying it, how we can leverage better pedestrian mobility to connect residents to one another and to their community while creating a sense of place and adding vibrancy throughout the Northbrook neighborhood. And that doesn't make a lot of sense to a layperson, but what we're really doing is, when I got here, I was fascinated by the Main Street Trail. What we're doing that is we're taking it to another level, and we're taking it throughout the Northbrook neighborhood and seeing where it's viable to be implemented. So we're really excited about that project. We met. The next step is for the Miami students to go ahead and take this problem back, see what research they can do that analysis, and then come back for another meeting where they'll present their findings. Of course, staff will be there along the way to provide some guidance to these students to make sure they're on the right path. But they'll go ahead and present their findings at a public meeting that we'll be having later in April, and that date is TBD right now. But they'll do their findings, they'll get some input, and then they'll spit out a final document at the end of this. And we can use that as kind of a springboard into different things we may want to do with their findings. So that's it in a nutshell. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any on other projects.
Mark, I like that idea of displaying only on the rotunda. Now you take into the community, like a library and a mall and things like that, as one step for you to take it to the public. that's a good start.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and also like the idea of bringing the Miami University students. So, you know.
We have them in on Green Beer Day.
I think it's a great project for the students. They interfere with the actual project, and they go back and do the research and bring back the result, which we can use it. It's a great program.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate doing that.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Just a quick, I don't know if this is for you or Mr. Mills. I understand that there's an opening in Regional Planning Commission coming up, and two, actually. And I think, is this for you?
No,
Okay.
it could be
I
for
think,
whomever.
I don't know how we need to stack this deck, but I think that we need to get some people from the outskirts, the suburbs, and from the westish kind of suburbs, so I don't know if we're talking Green or Colerain or wherever, or even Whitewater. But we need to make sure, I think, that we get some representation on there, so maybe that's something you can get back to me with, or you can, on how we can do that.
Yeah, my understanding is there are only 2 applicants for one of the positions. So I'm sure they could use some more applicants.
Okay. And when does that application period end, do you know?
I don't know.
That's at the county site website?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you for the
Thank you, Mike.
CIC information you sent me too.
Oh, no problem. Happy to help.
Thank you, Mike.
Very good. Board, it's late, so I'll keep it quick. Leave time to answer any questions you may have, but I just wanted to say, Ms. Harlow, we're going to miss you. I don't know that everybody appreciates how hard you work. I mean, you are in the office multiple days every week for multiple hours. This is not your first job. You have a family, you have a full-time other job, and yet you still find time for us, and we really, really appreciate it. POs don't sit, they get signed immediately. I never have to worry about that, and none of our department heads do either. You work in the evenings. I get emails from you on Saturdays, on Sundays. You don't stop, and I just wanted to let you know that I appreciate that, and we all do. I hope that you feel the love tonight. We all appreciated the work that you gave us, and your family's lucky to have you back. We're going to miss you. Thank you.
Any other administrative report from you?
Not unless you have questions. Would you like me to
No,
provide
fine.
anything?
It's time is marching on. Trustees report, Mr. Waller.
All right, I'll try to be quick. It's the seat, I'm telling you. A couple of kind of updates. Usually I do kind of I'm starting to do like a focus on the citizen spotlight, but in deference to Ms. Harlow tonight, she's my focus on, yeah. I know, it's right now you can get whatever you want, I guess, out of everybody. Just want to remind people to vote Tuesday, go out and vote, or actually you can vote early. If you vote at, I think, my voting location, which is at Northgate Park, that's been changed. So if you vote at a place that is an area that caters to folks over 55, check the Hamilton County Board of Elections website. There has been probably a change to where you vote, and we don't want to make that any more difficult. And certainly you can vote in Norwood off hours, and I know that they're open till 8, I think, this week, and I know that they're open on Saturday and maybe even Sunday. So please go out and vote. The rules that we worked with, after I took a look at the agenda, I held those off till next meeting because I knew that we would be somewhat on the long end of things, probably because of me. A citizen had contacted me about the opioid settlement that the state of Ohio is pursuing. Hamilton County Commissioners passed a resolution Thursday with regard to that. We are in that, I guess I want to say class action suit, and the estimate is that based upon the impact of the opioid crisis on Colerain Township, that we would receive 0.14% of the settlement, which would be, in our case, somewhere north of $80,000. So obviously what got us there is bad news, but at least we have some kind of compensation. I've spoken to a number of people in Jackie's Lane, and if you're in that neck of the woods and interested in creating kind of a block watch, I've talked to Chief Denny about that, and we're going to get that started as well. a couple people talked about trash. We are working on getting solutions to that, and I will say this with the risk of getting something thrown at me, but on April 3rd, we're going to have an invasion in Colerain Township of purple. About 40 to 50 elder kids are coming in for service day, and they're going to work the parks, and I even have some of them bringing in, I think, picks and stuff to get honeysuckle out. So say what you will about the elder kid, but they work. Yeah, Solomon with us. Yeah. So if you see a bunch of purple, be nice to him that day, I guess. Also, we hosted on Valentine's Day, not really my idea of a great Valentine's Day date, we hosted Congressman Shabbat here in the township, and he made a number of visits, started in the morning and spent all day, I think till 5:30 Friday night. I kind of chauffeured him around, and every stop begged him for more federal money, to the point where it was getting almost like embarrassing. I'm like, you know what you could do here? These federal funds apply. Reminding him all along the way that folks in townships vote at a much higher percentage than do folks not in townships. A subtle hint for him as well. I think I have gotten everything I wanted to. The last thing is, I know Mr. Unger does this. I publish mine too. My cell phone, 353-8852. I don't know what it is. I had to go look it up, but 353-8852. During my day job, please don't call me there. I'm busy with probably 30 18-year-olds, and you won't really get a good answer at that point. Give me a couple minutes to like decompress, but I can't really be pulled out of class, and I've gotten, for some reason, the last 2 weeks, a number of calls at work, which I've got a line here. I've got a special cell phone. The red one is the Colerain cell phone. The black one is my cell phone. So you have plenty of ways to get in touch with me. Other than that, thank you, Ms. Harlow, again for your service. Sorry I'm long-winded as usual. I will move it along. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Waller. Trustee Roger Gopal.
Thank you, Dan. Again, Heather, thank you so much serving our community for 16 years. That's a lot of years. And yeah, and you know, doing that, you raise a beautiful children, and it's amazing work you did. Took care of our parents and among this busy schedule, and you had a passion for this township.
I do.
And you'll continue to do that. I know you will do it, helping the township. Good luck to you. Enjoy the free time you got now.
Thank you.
Okay. I won't keep a long list. But a couple of weeks ago or so, myself and Jeff Mills and Jeff Baker and Northwest School Superintendent Todd Bowen, we went to the see the boys and girls program up in Price Hill area. What was the name of the school we went? Somewhere.
It was on Baltimore at Roll Hill.
Yeah, in New Baltimore.
Baltimore Avenue.
Yeah,
Yep,
Baltimore
Roll
Avenue.
Hill. Yep.
It's very low income area, a lot of high crime, you know. I remember that when I was a probation officer going to arrest people left to right, even the police were scared to go to that area. They shoot at the police cars. And anyway, they had a great program, after school program, and the boys and girls, Bill Brazier showed us the program. Amazing. We are so impressed. How we can do it for Colerain Township. We're going to target like a Taylor School, elementary school. I'm meeting with Todd tomorrow to talk about how we can do that. It is very, very important. We need to, you know, encourage the kids to stay away from trouble, crime, because that's our future investment for our township. We got to raise a good younger generation. That's our duty, like I said last meeting too. So the program hopefully will take off. It won't cost any money to the taxpayers of a Colerain Township. I kind of lined up some great donors. That's the main thing. Also, last week I met with the doctor from Children's Hospital. She's in charge of the prenatal program, the mother addicted with the opiates, so the children, the baby won't be born with that, with opiate addictions. And this is a program she started, she became very nationwide, popular on this, and we're gonna do, how we're gonna do it, start a program in Colerain Township, help those people addicted with the opiate. So this also from the funding I mentioned for the last meeting, from the federal funding money. I think one of our assistant chief from fire department, Mr. Mueller, serve on the committee, how we can, get this federal money for the Colerain Township. So please help each other this time of we are country facing a very bad situation on that virus thing. Keep talking to people about this, how to protect themselves, and checking on any senior citizens, they're living by themselves. If they need help, please offer them help. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Raj. I'll just have two items. One is I recently attended the Hamilton County Board of Health meeting, and we have an assessment that Colerain Township pays every year, and I believe it was $76,793 for this year, and for next year it will go to $78,559 for an increase of $1,765. And for that, the Hamilton County Board of Health maintains services in Colerain Township. So it's a slight increase, but I'm here to report that that is going up. My other topic, as Mr. Waller did mention, that there is an election next Tuesday, and at previous meetings I've spoken about the issue 7 that is on the ballot, and I'd just like to talk a little bit about the effects of that on Colerain Township. That group was supposed to hold a forum here on February 26th, and for some reason or another it was canceled, and I don't know why, but anyway, I do have some comments, and this is my personal opinion as a Colerain resident. This is not the opinion of the Board of Trustees. And as you're aware, issue 7's on the ballot March 17th. It calls for raising the county sales tax to 7.8%, which would be the highest it's ever been in the history of Hamilton County. Over its 25-year life, it's projected to cost consumers in Hamilton County over $3 billion, which is as much as 5 or 6 Paul Brown stadiums. Just a few things to think about. There was a 5-year museum center tax, and that was supposed to sunset on at the end of this month, March 31st of 2020. One of the last actions of the 2019 Hamilton County Board of County Commissioners, the late Commissioner Portune and Denise Driehaus and Stephanie Dumas, they voted to repeal the sunset. So we thought that was going to go away March 31st. On April 1st, we have a 7% sales tax rate that 8/10 would be added to. And that's actually an 11.4% increase in the tax. It's not so much 0.8 of a cent. It's if you take 7 times 0.1142857, that's what the increase is. And on small purchases, which most purchases are small, 7.8 is going to ring up to $1.08 every time. It doesn't ring down to $1.07, it rings up to $1.08, so it's an 8% sales tax for most consumers. And the thing about this plan is I don't know that SORTA takes into account the inception and growth of services such as Lyft, Uber, and whatever other smart technology comes along in the next 10 years. And the fixed bus routes, they don't really compete with the evolving door-to-door service where customers can time and wait for their ride to show up, so it's at a convenient time rather than a schedule. And for that matter, grocery delivery and everything else is becoming more and more smart-based. This tax increase that's on the ballot, only 25% of it is for road repair, and that's only for roads that Metro buses travel on. And so people know in Colerain Township, most of our streets are subdivisions, none of which will receive any benefit from this tax. And the roads that buses travel are mostly county and state roads like Cheviot Road, Blue Rock Road, Springdale Road, or whatever. And so this does not help our township public works budget. And it's kind of funny that the Yes on 7 group shows pictures of the Western Hills Viaduct, which has pretty much been the poster child for many tax increases. I think back when they were talking about having casinos, that was supposed to help that out also. I think the fair way to fund this is with the per gallon fuel tax and license plate fees. They're truly user-based fees, but you know, it pays $60 a year for annual license plate fees, and if everybody uses 10 to 15 gallons of gas a week and pays the fuel tax, that's maybe an estimated $400 in fuel tax. So that's about $460 a year per car that's paid into the road fund. And if they get their increase in ridership, the 92% increase they're talking about, that's $460 per car that's not getting paid into the road funds anymore, and is going to SORTA, which is, I guess people have a chance to vote on that in the primary. If they do hit their goal, that would take about 15,000 cars off the road in the next 10 years. If cars get replaced once every 10 years and the average price of a car is $20,000, and it's 7.8% sales tax, that's $1,560 per car in lost sales tax. We take 15,000 times $1,560, that's $23,400,000 in lost sales tax collection in a county where so much, such as the not yet retired stadium bonds and other things, are dependent on the sales tax. And that says nothing of a couple rounds of tires replacements, oil changes and stuff. So there's gonna be a lot of lost sales tax if so many people get in there. And buses are great, but I don't think SORTA's figured that into their equation. And you know, the fuel tax was raised 10 cents a gallon back in the summer of 19, and the Hamilton County Commission raised license plate fees by $5 a couple years ago. And part of this is City Council and our good neighbors in Cincinnati, the earnings tax is 2.1%, and they say that 3/10 will go off. If this passes, it'll transfer the cost of SORTA to the county taxpayers. But I hate to say so, but there's nobody on City Council that I think's not going to ask to get that 3/10 back. It's only one council election away, and so I doubt it would stay below 2.1% for too long. This is really tough on our brick and mortar businesses. Yeah, online business is supposed to collect sales tax, but we're raising these costs for our brick and mortar businesses. Not all the online businesses collect sales tax, and the ones that do, their product distribution buildings are located in low tax places. So our schools, police, fire, township are not collecting property taxes on a building that's providing retail. And just take a look at the Amazon facility that's going up over in Boone County. That building's going to pay nothing to Hamilton County or Colerain Township in property taxes. So we lose out on that. And you know, you can always go back to what City Council did make a decision to do 5 or 6 years ago, and that was build a rail-based streetcar system. The city voters had a couple opportunities to vote that out, and both times voted to proceed with it. That was a 30-year commitment, and at this point, the city needs to live up to that commitment and pay it off, or they have to pay back all their federal funds. And just a couple other points. The way the SORTA board is set up, the city of Cincinnati, I think they have 7 appointments, and they're not going to surrender any of those appointments, so that maybe Colerain Township could have an appointment. So this will become a county-funded plan that still is run by people appointed by City of Cincinnati or the mayor or city council. And I'm all for having a bus system, make no mistake. And a lot of folks have planned their living situation based on that accessible transportation. And if the county or SORTA or the City of Cincinnati wants more buses, that's great, but move it up on your priority list. We just can't keep funding all these new projects. If that's a bigger priority than some other things, then fund that and decide what your lesser priorities are. And in closing, I don't know if it does pass how those funds would be dispersed, but the most dangerous part of this is if that passes and the county goes ahead and says, great, or the SORTA says, great, we want that money right now, and they go ahead and bond out their projected income, that'll tie this county to a huge debt expense. And I think Jeff Weckbach used to work for the county and saw the cuts of some really serious cuts down there just to fund the stadium bond. So it scares me to know that they might bond this out. I have not heard how they would collect this money, but that would be just a financial disaster for this county. So there's no second guessing where I'm at on the topic, but that is on the ballot next Tuesday, and I would ask that people get out and vote. And with that said, I think, Raj, you mentioned you wanted to take a little break after the trustee report, so I will.
People are, everybody sitting there,
I
so
will
what,
motion for
when's
a,
gonna,
um,
when's gonna end?
I will, well, there's a lot of stuff. Raj, apparently it's gonna be 25 years. It'll be 25 years before it ends, and at the end of the 25 years, they'll just go ahead and extend it because they won't have relieved the bond debt, and just like they just did with the 5-year museum center tax, it never goes away.
I was told there'd be no math involved.
You meant, when is Dan's speech going to end?
25
Oh,
years.
no.
No. I will never stop
Dan,
speaking out
go-
against
go
these
ahead and
type
speak,
of things.
Dan.
I'm done.
I didn't mean.
I'm done. It's a tough thing they're asking for.
Motion for recess?
I will second that motion to take a few-minute recess. It's 9:57, and we'll come back at 10:05. So it's been motioned and seconded. Heather, could you please call for a vote?
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
So try to be back in here at 5 after 10, please. I'd like to call this meeting of the Township Trustees back to order. Heather, would you call the roll to record that we've all returned?
Mr. Rajagopal?
Here.
Mr. Unger?
Here.
Mr. Waller?
And now we're into new business. Mr. Mills?
Yes, sir, Mr. Unger. We now enter the phase of new business. We'll begin with public safety agenda items, beginning with the police department and Chief Mark Denny, who is Johnny on the spot. There you go.
Good evening again, Board. I got 3 items. The first is going to be recommend adoption of a motion to issue a noise resolution permit to Trios Lounge, 5744 Springdale Road for Saturday, March 14th from 3 p.m. to midnight. This is the first request for them for this business year, and there are no causes for the police department to object to that.
I would motion that we issue a noise resolution permit to Trio Lounge.
I will second that.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Heather, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Second item is recommend adoption of a motion to issue a noise resolution permit to St. John the Baptist School for March 21st, 2020 from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. Again, there's no reason for the police department to object to that issuance.
Motion to approve the application for noise resolution permit.
Seconded.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? I will state that my wife works there, so I will abstain. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, Heather, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Abstain.
And Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Final item, I recommend adoption of a motion to allow Township Administrator Jeff Mills to enter into a 1-year agreement with the following tow companies to provide impound services to the police department: Engels Towing, Bratfish Auto Body, Bless Towing, Beavis Towing LLC, and Lambert Towing. The term of this agreement is from April 1st, 2020 to March 31st, 2021. This agreement establishes the Colerain Police Department's rotation list. Whenever we tow a car, there's a rotation list that the communications center has, and they fairly divvy up the impounds by that list. So this would allow us to have an agreement with them. There's a list of rules that they must maintain, certain physical structures that protect the cars if they're towed to their lot. Most of them are towed to our impound lot. If there's an overflow, though, we require they have a fencing and security systems in place that will protect any of our residents' cars that we would take to the lot. So there's a pretty extensive rules and regulations. We have a checklist that our administrative lieutenant will go through and make sure they meet all of the qualifications. Their trucks will be inspected. So we just want to make sure that we're providing good service.
Thank you, Mark. I would motion that we permit the administrator to enter into agreement with the tow company vendors for the police.
Mr. President, discussion?
Let's get a second first.
Okay, second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yes, sir. I noticed that I didn't see the reasoning. Why the year contract versus the 5 previous?
We did one in past, it was 5 years. The 1 year is to give us an opportunity to look to see if there's any benefit to the township providing our own service in a year's period of time. There's some discussion back and forth whether that would be a financially reasonable thing for us to do or not, so we just want to give ourselves that opportunity in a year to see if that's something we want to do.
Okay, thank you.
These are pretty much local company too, right?
They're all Colerain Township companies, yes.
Yeah, that's supporting the company, yeah.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, Heather, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
The next set of items come from the fire department, and they will be represented by Chief Frank Cook.
Board, I have 3 items for you to give consideration to this evening. The first one being a request authorization to accept a $25 donation. The request to accept the monetary donation from Ms. Bernice Niehaus of 3452 Nandale Drive is in memory of Mr. David Spees for emergency medical services provided by the Department of Fire and EMS.
I motion that we authorize acceptance of the monetary donation from Bernice Niehaus.
I'll second that motion.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I'd just like to send my condolences to the family.
And I'd like to thank Bernice Niehaus. Any other discussion?
Sam, thank you for these people giving this donation.
Heather, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
The second item is also a request authorization to accept a $100 donation. The request to accept the monetary donation is from Mr. and Mrs. David Rope of 9,000 Indian Ridge Lane, 45243, in memory of Mr. David Spees for emergency medical services provided by the Department of Fire and Emergency Medical Services.
I motion that we authorize acceptance of the monetary donation from Mr. and Mrs. David Rope.
I will second that motion.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Again, just the condolences to the friends and family.
Any other discussion?
Thank you.
Thank you to them also. Heather, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
The last item, again, is also a request authorization to accept a $1,000 donation. The request to accept a monetary donation is from Mr. George Clark of 3991 Blue Heron Lane, 45251, for emergency medical services provided by the Department of Fire and EMS.
I will move to accept the donation from Georgia Virginia Clark on Blue Heron Lane.
I second it.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? Thank you to Mr. George and Mr. George Clark.
Thank you.
And with no other discussion, Heather, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Thank you very much, Board. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you,
Hey,
Chief.
Chief, keep bringing checks like that.
Next, we have several items from the Department of Public Services, led by Ms. Jackie O'Connell.
I'll spend Chief's checks if he needs a hand with that.
Good.
They've got just a couple things for you gentlemen tonight. The first is is the motion to approve the 2020 road pavement contract. We received 4 bids, and we had an open bid on February 18th or February 13th. The lowest bid was R.A. Miller at $1,118,602.70. And we did receive 3 other bids with that, and I have attached the bid tab was in the packet. So I would recommend the adoption of a motion to approve the 2020 road paving project contract with R.A. Miller and to authorize the township administrator to execute all of the documents.
I would motion that we do such a thing.
I second it.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? I'd like to thank all the vendors who put together pricing for it. That's not an easy thing to do. And thank you, Jackie, for getting this together so we can get it approved at our March meeting so we can get ahead of the season. Hopefully we'll get some nice weather this year and get things done in a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah, as soon as we get it signed, they will contact the R.A. Miller representative. And my staff did all of this. Todd Bandy, Craig Riemann, and Dan Schulte, they were the drivers on this, so props to them. They did a great job.
Please pass
It's a
along
lot
to
of
them.
work that goes into that project.
There is, and tell them thanks for having it at our March meeting.
And also, thank you for providing all of the bids as a point of reference. I appreciate that as well.
My second item today is I have more capital equipment.
We have to vote.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
You're excited
to go.
I am about this. Mr. Rajagopal?
Yeah.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
And Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Am I good now?
Yes.
Okay. I have more capital equipment to purchase for the Public Services Department. I am asking for a light-duty dump truck for the Parks Department and a replacement sign truck for the Roads Division. The total cost of all these purchases will not exceed $183,000. Both of these items were part of the 2020 budget process and have been included in the 2020 final appropriations. The pricing associated with these items is aligned with or below the state bid. The fleet manager, Mike Adler, I have his proposals and recommendations in the bid packet, or in the meeting packet. So what I would ask is I would recommend the adoption of a motion to allow the purchase of those two items not to exceed the listed amounts.
I motion that we do such a thing.
I will second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yes, Jackie, the road sign truck, do we have one, or this is a new sign truck, we're purchasing one?
We do have one. It's a 1992 model.
Okay,
And it's on its last leg. It's the yellow truck that you see going through the subdivisions. We joke that it looks like a giant bread truck.
is the new truck any different than the old truck?
Yes, the new truck is, well, the new truck will not be yellow, but the new truck is made by, I'm sorry.
Yeah, very,
The new truck has got some bells and whistles on it that the old truck doesn't. To make it easier, it'll have better storage for us to store the tools more securely and more neatly. It will have a place for our ladder. It will have a place, it's got hydraulic equipment on it. It has chargers in it for equipment, for hand tools. It has a crane attached to it to help us pull out signpost. It's going to have a light bar on it, so when we get emergency calls out at night, they are better lit than what they currently are. So.
And a welder.
And a welder, yes. It's got all of the things on it that they should need to do signs.
so the old truck will be auctioned out, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Is there any other discussion?
Yeah, so I've asked this question 4 different times to different people. And I'm going to ask you too, because it's my duty. Is there any way to postpone either one of these things? It's hard to ask that when it's 1992, and that's, I'm 50 years old, and that's 5 years after I graduated high school. So, but the other one was 2003. I guess has a lot of rust. Is that the case?
The other one is, the Parks dump truck. We have, up until last year, we had 4 Parks dump trucks. Last year, we reevaluated, and when we purchased a new truck, we did not replace a dump truck. We replaced it. We downsized the fleet. So we are now down to 3 dump trucks, and the dump truck that we're currently asking to replace is not roadworthy. So we only drive it back and forth in the maintenance area if we need to move things around, but we can't haul anything in the bed, and we can't take it out on the street. So it is currently benched.
Okay, that's an answer.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, Heather, please call for a vote.
Mr. Marshall-Capel?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
And Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Thank you. And my last is a bit of good news. We received donations for the new playground at Colerain Park on behalf of Officer Dale Woods and from Frida and Jürgen Slupek. And I would recommend the adoption of a motion to accept the $2,050 in donations from these folks for the new playground at Colerain Park. The donation on behalf of Dale Woods was an anonymous donor.
I will make that motion.
I'll second the motion to accept those donations. Is there any discussion? Thank you to those folks that are donating. Any other discussion?
Absolutely, just thank you.
Thanks, these people also.
Heather, please call for a vote.
Mr. Marshall-Capel?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
And Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Connell. Next several items are from the Planning and Zoning Department, led by Mr. Mike Iona.
Good evening, Board. I have 5 items of business to this evening. The first is a resolution imposing a moratorium on businesses associated with vaping. This was requested by staff at the previous trustee meeting. The rationale is that there's been an increase in the number of vaping shops in Colerain Township. The proposal will place a moratorium on any new vaping establishments, as well as additions to existing vaping shops for a period of 1 year. This moratorium will provide time to allow the township and the Board of Trustees to review pertinent state and federal legal codes pertaining to vaping sales establishments, as well as to enact reasonable regulations as to the size, number, and location of said businesses in Colerain Township. So I am recommending approval of this resolution, imposing a 1-year moratorium on new establishments that primarily sell or distribute electronic smoking devices and/or vapor products within Colerain.
I will move to I will move to resolve to impose a moratorium on business associated with vaping.
I'll second it.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for preparing this. I think it's important that we let the data and the research catch up to what we got selling what we have selling in the stores. And
Excellent.
I appreciate it so much, you putting this together.
I think it's a very growing business, getting very popular thing, and we got to protect our community. That's our role. This is a good thing to do.
As we discussed at the last meeting, I don't see where I would be in favor of this based on the UDF up on Banning Road has these products right on their counter, and so do so many of our other retailers. And how do we decide? And I know we talked about the revenue that would come from it, and you would work that into your moratorium on those for a year, but it's a legal product. I would never use it. It's probably not a good thing, but there's a lot of things that aren't good for us. And I don't know that we're going to shut down UDF or CVS or anybody else that I don't know if CVS has it or not, but any of those stores that carry these products. I say go ahead and work on a resolution for it, but I'm not going to support this one-year moratorium. So is there any other discussion? Hearing none, Heather, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
No,
And Mr. Waller?
Aye.
and motion carries.
The second item is a motion to set a public hearing on April 14th, 2020 for zoning text amendment ZA 2020-01. This is a zoning text amendment to the Colerain Township zoning resolution, and the proposal is to add viticulture and wineries as a conditional use subject to restrictions within the R2, R3, and R4 zoning districts.
I would motion that we set a public hearing on the evening of April 14th, 2020 for zoning text amendment ZA 2020-01.
I will second that.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
No.
Hearing none, Heather, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
And Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Okay over there, Raj? Go ahead, Mike.
The third item is a motion to set a public hearing on April 14th, 2020 for zoning text amendment ZA 2020-02. This is a zoning case for a text amendment to the Colerain Township zoning resolution to add mobile food service operations or food trucks subject to restrictions as a permitted use within the B1 Business 1 zoning districts. The recommendation is to adopt this motion.
I will motion to set a public hearing on April 14th, 2020 for zoning map amended ZA 2020-03.
I will second that motion. It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
No.
Hearing none, Heather, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
So the last, I also have one last public hearing to set, and that's a motion to set a public hearing on April 14th, 2020 for zoning map amendment ZA 2020-03. And this is a submitted application on a map amendment or a zone change to the Colerain Township zoning map. The proposal is to change the zoning on the site in question to a planned development district. The applicant is proposing to construct 139 market rate apartments. And staff is recommending that you adopt this motion.
Do we need to amend? Where's that at on here? Is that on here?
Yeah, ZA 2020-03.
Dash 03.
Motion for 03 at the last motion that was made was for 03, but I think it may have been, it should have been for 02.
Well, we probably need to go back and correct that.
All right, I will withdraw my motion to set a public hearing on April.
We actually already approved a set for 2020-03.
So maybe make the motion for 02.
02. 03 is good, right? We're,
Jeff, you got your mic on?
Yep.
all right, then I will make a motion to set a public hearing on April 14th, 2020 zoning text amendment ZA 2020-02.
Which is for?
That's for the text amendment adding mobile food service operations as a permitted use subject
Right.
to restrictions within the B1 district.
Okay, and your motion was for 2020-03.
Which passed.
Passed, so
And now I just motioned for 02 and it needs a second.
I'll second that with any discussion. Scott?
Looks good.
Okay? Okay, any other discussion?
None.
Hearing none, Heather, please call for a vote.
Mr.
Roger.
Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
And Mr. Waller?
Aye.
So what we've done is just set 3 public hearings for April 14th, 2020, just to be clear about it.
Yes.
So,
3 of those will be for the zoning commission items, 2 are text amendments to the zoning resolution, and 1 is for a map amendment. to the zoning
those will
resolution.
appear in the advertised agenda for that meeting, so.
Correct.
Okay. Go on to
All in
item
accordance
E.
with ORC statutes for notification. We have one more public hearing to set, and that is a motion to set a public hearing on April 14th, 2020, for the sidewalk maintenance project Phase 1. This is a Colerain Township sidewalk maintenance program has been created to repair and maintain Colerain Township's sidewalks, neighborhood sidewalks. Colerain Township is allowing property owners the choice to repair their sidewalks at their own accord with an approved permit, or the township will go in and repair these sidewalk pieces, whether it's a piece of regular sidewalk or within the driveway apron, that are located within one of 2 areas that we've identified as this first Phase 1. And we are allowed to do this in accordance with ORC statutes. What this motion does is set a required public hearing that's outlined in ORC statutes for us to go ahead and proceed with this project. So staff is recommending that you adopt this motion to set a public hearing.
I motion that we set a public hearing on April 14th, 2020 for sidewalk maintenance project Phase 1.
I will second that motion.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Heather, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
And Mr. Waller?
Aye.
And my final item is a motion to authorize an RFP, request for proposals and process for Colerain Township Sidewalk Maintenance Program Phase 1. Again, this is a program that we created last year that we were looking to implement, but there were some delays that were hit. We're looking to implement that this year. In fact, it's one of the initiatives we've outlined in our strategic plan that go along with our township-wide theme this year of connectivity. Sidewalks are a critical way for residents to get to and from township assets and day-to-day venues like schools, libraries, and commercial and entertainment destinations throughout the township. There are 2 areas that we are focusing on, and again, this is a program that we had in place last year. They're located in Northbrook and Groesbeck, approximately 1.5 miles from one another. Both areas were chosen due to their proximity to crucial township assets, most specifically schools. And what we've done, and what was actually done last year, was there was a survey conducted in these areas that identified sidewalk tiles that needed to be repaired or maintained. So what this RFP does is it allows us to go out and seek contractors to complete these repairs. It's as simple as that. So staff is recommending that you adopt this motion and authorize us to go through with the proposed RFP process that is outlined in the packet that was sent to you all.
Sir, I will motion to authorize an RFP in process for Colerain Township Sidewalk Maintenance Program Phase 1.
I will.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Dan. Yeah.
I will second that. Is there any discussion? Yes. This is the item that I saw the Section 3 contracts on, and there is some funding from the county for this.
This is paid for 100% with federal funds through Community Development Block Grant.
Okay.
So that's why the Section 3 stuff is there.
Right, so you've gone out and found funds from another source besides locally, so thank you.
Yes.
Any other discussion?
I think that's a priority. We saw that during the town hall meetings.
Yes, sir.
The citizens of this Colerain Township, they want number 1 priority, building a sidewalk. I think we are ahead of the game now.
So this is going to represent about $150,000 worth of improved sidewalks. So existing sidewalks that will be replaced, $150,000 worth.
Will these all be replaced, or are you shaving, or?
Mostly replaced.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's mostly to dig them out, is what we've.
Right, a lot of them are 60 years old.
Yes.
So it's time.
It's all infrastructure.
I've always challenged our department heads to go out and find other funding sources, and in this case, as with so many other grants and things that we get, you have done that. So thank you for finding these other funds. Anything we can do to limit the exposure to the property owners here for taxes. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, Heather, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
And Mr. Waller?
Aye.
That's all I have for this evening. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Iona. We have two items in administration under new business. The first is a motion to issue a request for proposals for communication and media consulting services. You'll recall that in the discussion of the 2020 strategic plan and budget book, we had presented the idea of having a person hired by the Colerain Township that is an employee of the township handle our communication needs. Mr. Unger, you had suggested reaching out to Waycross. I did that, but I learned that I wanted to make sure I didn't go afoul of our procurement rules, and so I learned from Mr. Solomon and Mr. Barbier that we needed to do an RFP on this to keep on the right side of procurement. So the recommendation is to approve a motion to issue an RFP for communication and media consultant services. The idea is that we'll release this tomorrow and get responses back by the 31st, and hopefully by April be able to present the findings or the respondents, and then let you make a decision as to how you'd like to move forward.
To get it to the floor, I will motion that we issue a request for proposals for communication and media consulting services.
I will second.
Been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yes, thanks, Dan. I think we still not perfected what kind of the sources we have right now in the communications. We are not even perfected at. I feel that way. And here we went ahead. We're going ahead and hiring another service, paying more money. I think it's not appropriate.
So just a question, are we adding, just we're requesting? We're
putting out a request for proposals, so we're asking
Actually,
folks to propose a price for service. And I agree with you, we're not doing a good job of communicating right now, and this is the reason, that's the reason why we're asking for folks to.
I think we need to, what we have, we need to improve, perfect it at it.
We don't have anybody to do it.
We got all kinds of transparency thing going on, and let's stop spending more money. Let's just use what we got right now, get good at it.
And we might do that. We might not approve any of these.
Exactly. Just because you put an RFP out doesn't mean you have to accept any of them.
To spend more on it either, but you have been badgering us for this, and
I'm trying to be responsible.
I know.
I sat through all the town hall meetings where they said that the two priorities were we do an awful job at communication and we need to have better sidewalks. And so I'm just trying to.
I know, that's fine, but I'm happy to proceed with it.
Sure.
Do you have any discussion, Mr. Waller?
Yeah, I mean, I am a little gun shy at this, and just because I think that we're entering some headwinds economically, and I just think it's a lot of money, but I don't know what it looks like, and I'm willing, give me a proposal and I will entertain it, because just because it's not my thing, so to speak, doesn't mean it's not a good idea. But at this point, if I were to vote on any kind of proposal, it'd be a no, but I'll look at what they've got.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, Heather, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal?
No.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
And Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. The next item is a resolution adopting the 2020 permanent appropriations. This is typically the final step in the appropriations process for the year. We went through, for the past month, 6 weeks, we've gotten with each department head and said, hey, what has changed in your operation and your need for budget from temporary appropriations, which was completed in December, to permanent appropriations now. There are a couple of changes that I'd like to highlight for you. The permanent appropriations suggestion is to increase the amount by 2.78% from temporary appropriations. The lion's share of that comes from $300,000 is proposed for additional mill and fill in Mount Healthy Heights, known as the President Streets, so Roosevelt, Grant, up that way off of Pippin. I've shared with you before, in order to maintain the current status of our roads, maintain that PCI score, we need to be spending about $4 million a year on resurfacing. Currently, we spend $1.25 million a year. So this proposal says, let's take some of the gas money that we received last year, and which rolled to fund balance, and apply that to try to get ahead of some of this road resurfacing. We've also heard you speak from the DS and say that you'd like for us to explore different techniques for road preservation. And one of those techniques that I've heard you talk about from the DS is cape sealing. So this proposes an additional $200,000 from the roads fund balance and deploying that capital, not sitting on it in a fund balance, but deploying that to make a difference in our neighborhoods and fix streets using the cape sealing technology where it's appropriate. Additionally, we are woefully behind in our stormwater catch basin repairs, and this grants $56,000 for additional catch basin repairs to try to catch up with the backlog, and $50,000 for additional road paint, traffic indicators, and road lines. Further, there was there was a purchase order that was tied to an authorized purchase last year of SCBA, the breathing apparatus for firefighters. That purchase order was closed inadvertently last year, so we now need to reappropriate that $400,000 that was appropriated last year, reappropriate it this year. So that represents $420,000 of the increase. So the recommendation is to approve the resolution adopting the 2020 permanent appropriations. Be happy to answer any questions.
I'll motion to do that to get it to the floor.
I will second.
Is there any discussion? So last year we finished with a $6 million under budget. Yeah, $6 million under.
Yes.
You thought we would, so you spent $6 million less than we approved, which is great.
Yep.
Was that 400,000 part of that
Yes.
$6 million?
Yes, it was.
So we're spending that again right away, so it was 5.6 million, which is still great.
Yep.
So, and that's something that's needed, and I know things close at the end of a calendar year, I guess, so that's why it needs to be reapproved.
They should have been left open. So it was
Well, that's fine, yes. I get it, but I just wanted to clarify that 400,000 was part of the surplus from
Yes, sir.
last year, so that was reflected there. Yes, milling and paving and maintaining streets is a priority for me, and I would suspect for the other trustees also, so I'm fine with those other two items.
I agree. Like we talked about these roads and sidewalks, and it's a very important thing for our township.
And we spoke earlier today, did you have a chance to check that salary from we removed a position from the...
Right. Jeff, do you remember off the top of your head if we removed the, okay. So that, we will underspend that.
Okay. Okay, good. And I mean, you guys did a great job of underspending last year. Again, I shared this with you on a call today, is I have some significant concerns with the macro view of the economy, and I don't want us to get into a situation where we're adding a whole lot of expenses. I want to be as judicious as we can with spending, even more so than usual. And I appreciate you continuing with that theme and pounding down on the department heads so that it is an underbalance, so that you don't spend it all. So I know that I appreciate that as a trustee, but as a taxpayer. So thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, Heather, please call for a vote.
Sure. I want the board to be aware that they are approving resolution authorizing the adoption of permanent appropriations for the year 2020. Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board. That concludes new business. There's no old business that I'm aware of, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items on the consent agenda. So the first is a contract with Energy Alliances for electric and gas aggregation. that I signed this month. The second is the contract with Duke Energy for the Capstan Lighting District that you all approved in a previous agenda, so that is on the consent agenda. Recall that I put every contract that I sign on the consent agenda as a matter of transparency so that everybody's able to see that. There's a change order with OpenGov. They were unable to make a software integration that we requested, and so they swapped services at no cost to the township, but I wanted to make sure that you saw that. Further, there's the recommendation to hire 6 part-time employees in the Department of Fire and EMS. That is Austin Flannery as a firefighter EMT basic at $14.50 an hour, Joshua Hutchins, firefighter EMT basic at $14.50 per hour, Jamie Hubbard, EMT paramedic at $15.50 per hour, Tyler Humphreys, firefighter paramedic EMT basic, firefighter EMT basic at $14.50 per hour, Colin Lawson, firefighter EMT basic at $14.50 per hour, and Tyler Marzin, firefighter EMT paramedic at $15.93 per hour. All of the new hire authorization forms are included in the packet. So the terms of their hiring are detailed further in those documents. And then the final consent agenda item is the hire of one part-time maintenance worker, Mr. Benjamin Engel, at $12.50 per hour. And the recommendation is to approve all of the consent agenda items.
I would motion that we approve the consent agenda items.
Excuse me, I will second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? And thank you for reading all those rates and salaries and costs into the agenda. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, Heather, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
And Mr. Wallert?
Aye.
Thank you, Board.
Next item is fiscal office report.
First thing I'd like to do is ask for your usual approval of payroll purchase orders and receipts.
Motion that we approve payroll purchase orders and receipts.
I second it.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Heather, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Wallert?
Aye.
And then I'd also like to ask for the board's approval of adoption of a motion authorizing an interfund advance. This is an advance from the general fund for $998 to the CDBG fund 2908. In January 2020, Rock Solid Construction demolished 7600 Schuster.
6,700?
7600.
6,700.
Okay. I didn't, it looked, yeah. Schuster Court. At its meeting on February 11th, the trustees approved the advance of $6,700 to allow for the partial payment of the contract amount. This advance will be the payment for the demolition consisting with the contract. So both advances will be reimbursed, and then once we have that reimbursement, since it's an advance and not a transfer, it will be repaid back to the general fund. So this is just an advance until we get the CDBG funds back from the county.
So to clarify, the amount that we are advancing is?
$998.
I motion that we advance the $998 to that fund.
I will second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
So just a question, why what seemingly is an extra transactional step to go from the general fund to CDBG fund instead of just general fund to like a liability or an asset account receivable or something?
Sure. So we were able to get every 3 years we go through this exercise of identifying projects that we would like to use federal dollars for, community development block grant dollars that flow from the feds to the county. And there's a huge amount of compliance work that's related to the spending of federal funds. We don't do that, and trust me, we don't want to do that. It's very complex stuff with high stakes. And so Hamilton County Planning and Development Department Division of Community Development manages all of those community development block grant dollars. But they don't just give us the money at the beginning of the 3-year period. They hold on to the money, and then as we execute projects, they give it to us. And there's several different ways that you can pay for a community development block grant dollar or block grant project. One of them is for us to use our money and pay directly a vendor and then ask for reimbursement. Another way is for the Hamilton County to pay the vendor, and then we book it on our end. And so basically, what we're doing here is we're advancing the money for the demolition from the general fund to community development block grant fund, and then once we get the money from Hamilton County, we will give it back, and we have to give it back because that's what an advance is. The difference between a transfer and an advance is a transfer goes one way.
We have a pass-through account. To get rid of the pass-through account, we would have had to have paid the vendor directly out of the general fund and then sought reimbursement from CDBG.
Yeah, we want to keep, because it's federal funds, we really want to keep that clean.
Yeah,
we want to keep it clean. We don't want it to commingle with other funds. We want it to be very clean, and so it'll come back to the general fund just as soon as we.
Right, I'm not questioning whether it come, I'm just questioning the extra step, like why
Yeah.
we're doing that, and that makes sense. So if in the future, if this board were to decide, hey, we don't want the extra step, we would pay for it out of the general fund, seek reimbursement, but you're indicating that gets a little messy because it's commingling federal funds, and the federal government can get a little cheeky when it comes to that.
Totally, and the other piece, we have several special use funds. So, for example, like the recycling incentive fund, that's a dedicated fund that's for a dedicated source. Keeping it nice and clean is really important. The auditor likes that.
Thank you, thank you.
Did we get such a fund in 2018, the Community Development Fund?
Yes. So the fund has been around for a long time. The fund as it exists in our chart of accounts. So we've got lots of different funds, and that CDBG fund has been around for a very long time. And we use it for all to account for all of our community development block grant projects that are paid for that way.
So it's gonna guarantee kind of that fund mostly could be available.
Oh yeah, yes. We're going to get
We're
going to get refunded, and it's going to go back to the general fund.
What's the name of the lady? She works in the county. She's in
Joy
charge
Pearson.
of the fund. Joyce. Yeah.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, Heather, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
I have a question. So Jeff Baker, you've been taking minutes. I guess the system's working well, and you'll be ready to present these at our next meeting?
Sure.
Well, just
You'll
when
be
when the
fine.
next minutes come, they will be from Jeff Baker because I've been watching him take them, so.
And he will be presenting them to you at your April meeting. And this was, I can sit here and show him this software, but there's no better way to learn how to do this than to.
But I mean,
to do it.
it'll be okay for him to present the minutes because he has sat here and taken them.
Even if he hadn't, it would still be appropriate.
I prefer 12-point font with Times New Roman.
I do not use Times New Roman.
But anyway, I just wanted to clear that up, that Jeff would be presenting the minutes at the next meeting.
I'm not coming back.
And after 7,000 or so roll calls, Heather, I would make a motion that we.
No.
Okay. Did you have something to say?
I do, and that's a simple thank you. There are so many people that I'd love to thank tonight, and I'm afraid that I'm going to miss people, but I'm going to try anyway. I'd first like to thank my family. They have put up with so much for me and have been so fantastic and supportive and just amazing. And I'm talking, Michael's family up in Columbus, and my mom and dad certainly have been more than supportive over the last 16 years. And my boys, like Dan said, they don't know what it's like not to have me going off on Tuesday nights or the second and fourth Tuesday of most months. And I'd also really like to thank the township staff. I have never worked with a group of professionals that is more dedicated to their jobs and competent. And that's not the right word, because it's so much more than that. They're not just competent, they're passionate about this community and passionate about making our community better. And I'm talking from the guys that, from Public Works to Parks to, to everybody, to making our community better in any way that they can. And, I see people every day coming to work excited to see what can we do today to make Colerain Township a better place to live, work, and play. And that excitement is infectious. And I am so honored that I have been able to work with all of those folks over the last 16 years. I am just truly honored that the people of Colerain Township have elected me 4 times to this position. And it was not something I took lightly. It was very humbling. And I truly appreciate their confidence in me. So tomorrow, or March 31st, is also another special day for our family. And that will be the day, 50 years ago, that my dad was released from the Navy. So I'd like to thank all of the veterans that have served our community here and abroad. And there will be much celebrating, and I think there's a sea bag to open on March 31st as well. So, Jeff, thank you. You are going to serve our community with distinction, and I know that. So, all right. Thank you.
Big shoes to fill, but I'll do my best.
No, they're only a 9. They're really not that bad. When I say some big shoes, look at my kid.
Thank you for your comments, Heather, and best wishes to you. I'm sure we'll see you around. So, I would make a motion to adjourn.
A second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Heather, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Proudly to be the last one to give an aye to Heather. Mrs. Harlow, sorry.
And this meeting is adjourned at 10:53 p.m. Thank you.